Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another edition of the Breakfast Club Jamboree, or as I have titled it this week, Jambourgeois. Anyway, we have a new guest speaker, contributor, Nikki Firesnow. Hello, Nikki, and please tell everybody first of all how you got here and a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Nikki Firesnow. I have my own YouTube channel at Nikki Firesnow, and I'm a friend of Agent of Doubt. We go way back about a decade or so, I'd say, and been friends a long time. And he convinced me to come and give you guys a shot. So thought I would say hello.
And have you got a YouTube channel of your own?
I do. It's just Nikki Firesnow. You can find me there. And I'm a trans woman, so I talk about trans issues mostly.
Right. And have you been vlogging for a very long time on YouTube?
Just about a year, a little over a year since I started transitioning.
Oh, okay, right. And you've been transitioning on your channel. Is that like part of the whole focus?
One of the very first episodes was back at the very beginning. So, yeah.
Mm. And do you think that's helping you with your process, or does it make it any harder, or not?
Yeah, it's both ways. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of toughened me up being in the public eye and kind of taking some of the negative stuff. And then also, I've also seen a lot of support. So that support has helped kind of bolster me along the way. And yeah, it's been good. And I think we're all kind of helping each other in the YouTube community. So that's kind of what it's about for me.
Well, that's good to hear. I used to be, I'm not very well acquainted anymore, but I used to be acquainted with ContraPoints, and she mentioned that she kind of regretted transitioning in public, you know, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it myself, just as an observer, you know, because I know what the internet is like. Whether you're not transitioning, doesn't really matter. It's full of assholes. You know, and when you're doing anything that's anything at all, transitioning has got to be one of the most sort of currently sensitive topics and there must be an awful lot of people out there who just want to throw shit at you.
You know, there is quite a few, but you know, I've been in construction my whole life. I'm an electrician, so I'm already used to being around tough people and stuff. And then I've been an atheist for over a decade, and that has rubbed people the wrong way, and I've really kind of backed away from that a lot, as far as the activism and stuff. But you know, I'm just used to kind of taking hate and trying to make it positive. So you know, if some of my stuff isn't the greatest, I'll take it down if I get too much hate. But for the most part, people have been pretty good and pretty supportive everywhere I've gone.
I'm glad to hear it. It gives you hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, well, does anybody want to talk about any particular social topics to jump into the show with, or shall we talk about something lighter? I don't know how y'all want to start tonight. I'm easy.
Hassan Piker got banned on Twitch for using the word cracker.
Who did?
Hassan Piker.
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar.
He's known on the Young Turks. He's the guy they always make fun of because he has such huge, wide shoulders.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
I haven't watched Young Turks for a few years, so I won't know who that is. But fair enough. And he got banned from Twitter.
Twitch.
Oh, Twitch, right.
And someone else got banned. I can't remember the other person that got banned, but he got banned on Twitch for calling people crackers.
And what do you think about that, Kazum?
I think it's odd that they've done that, but at the same time, I think it's interesting that they're actually enforcing their rules on both sides of insults. But I don't know whether. Really, I mean, I probably not. But it's just interesting that I just found it. It's just something that it's a subject that's been floating around the net. So I thought I'd bring it up. So
right.
Okay, so can I jump in real quick? Mm-hmm. I want to say hi to Barbara and Philip. I'm pretty sure they followed me here. I know Barbara did. Anyway, hi. Welcome to the Breakfast Club. We're here every Saturday. Um, Actually, Paul, he's running the show. He can give you more details if he is, feels so inclined. But hi, thanks for chasing me down. I'm aware it's the cleavage you want to see, and that's cool. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Nikki, if you switch over to comments instead of private chat, you can see the comments that are happening on the YouTube feed. It's right there on your screen. So what I thought was interesting about Hassan Piker and Vosh getting banned was it started trending on Twitter as hashtag Crackergate, right? And there's this attempt on Twitch's part to like be fair, in different ways to different races and just ban people, blanketly, for certain types of terms. But like on Twitter, I can't imagine the other type of term being trending ever. You can't replace the word cracker in that and put gate on the end and then have it trend worldwide. That would be like immediately, squashed. But Crackergate, hashtag. It's awesome.
Wow, I don't even know. See, I don't like over policing of language on the one hand, but on the other hand, like Kazum said, at least if they're going to enforce it strictly and then do it in every direction, maybe there's some logic to that. I don't really know, but I don't know. I get really frustrated. The conversation seems to be so extreme these days in terms of what we're allowed to say, and it bugs me a bit.
I think some of it's common sense, or at least it should be. I mean, there's like the N word. It's got centuries of baggage, and that's not something you want to be throwing around like it's it's nothing. Cracker, on the other hand, is food. Somebody on Facebook was asking about this the other day. Now I know why, and I was like, that's food. Whatever. But I mean, there are other things. I mean, I get comments from mostly men using things like she-male or tranny and that kind of thing, and it's just like, I think there's a time and a place. I'm not one of those people that's just like, oh my God, you can't say that forbidden word. But I mean, I think there's a time and a place. You want to, if you're the right person at the right time, and you want to say she-male, I'm okay with that. Sissy, that's different. I don't like that word. It annoys me, but whatever. Other than the N-word, I don't know of any that are really hard lines.
Well, I mean,
now on Twitch,
I've never met anybody personally who's genuinely offended at the word cracker. I mean, most people I know, when they hear someone say it, they laugh at it. So I don't really understand. If something's genuinely offensive, then maybe you can argue, but I don't know. Is it just because it's a racial epithet and therefore, by definition, it has to be banned?
That's the argument, yeah.
Mm.
But what I find I think find interesting on. Oh, what were you going to say, Mike?
I was just going to say the way Paul says the word therefore is some crack of shit.
Twitch, they will very, very quickly ban someone for letting people in the comments say things that could go against their community guidelines. Now, YouTube, if someone typed the N-word in the comments.
Oh, right.
And they didn't, and the person who owns the channel doesn't delete that comment immediately, they can be shut down. Their whole channel can be taken down.
I think there is just such an aversion to drama starting on your platform that there is a tendency to overreact or to over police. I mean, I get why it happens and why it's like that. I don't get upset about it because of that reason, but I do find it amusing when people, mostly on the right, start screaming about censorship and freedom of speech, and the lizard people are coming, and
I'd like to kind of agree with Raven there on what she said earlier about the different things, and I just kind of relaxed quite a bit on when it comes to specifically like transgender type slurs and things like that. Because what does it matter? And I prefer transgender, but if someone doesn't want to, and I've been interviewing people, in Europe and that kind of thing, and other countries, and they still use different terms like transsexual, whereas here people would be offended by that. Over there, that's just normal medical terminology. So it is a little bit. Some of the slurs are different around the world in different parts of the world. But more specifically to the term cracker, I kind of think with the white privilege a little bit, is kind of when you're already in the minority to be the slur doesn't really carry a lot of weight the same way like the N-word would for someone. So, I think it is an apples and oranges comparison.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't know anyone who's actually offended. I mean, they might know it's meant to be offensive, but are they actually offended? I mean, if someone calls me stupid, I know they're trying to offend me, but I know factually I'm not stupid, so therefore it doesn't offend me.
Well, a new word that's been used lately that's offending a lot of people is colonizer. So instead of calling someone whiter, they say, "Oh, hey, colonizer."
Right.
And I do see people getting offended at that one.
It's just, again, because they know the intention is to be offensive, I guess, right? I mean, I've never colonized anything in my life, but I absolutely know what is being mentioned. The word colonizer has an entire novella of baggage that comes with it, of which I can't help be a part of just because of my race. So, I mean, I hear what they're saying and understand, but I've never colonized anything in my life. So, but that's irrelevant to why they're saying it,
But I don't think, I'd seriously doubt that Twitch would ban someone for using the word colonizer, because
it's only 2021. Kazoom, wait till 2023 or so.
Oh,
I mean? It's early days.
I'm just saying they probably did this other one with cracker on a technicality. Oh, that's a racial slur, but colonizer technically isn't a racial slur. So, that word would probably never have a problem. That's what I was trying to say.
I mean, they used the word colonizer in the movie Black Panther. I mean, it's not new. I mean, it's been quite a few years now that people have been using it. I mean, Black Panther's sister said to the FBI guy when they brought him in to be cared for, she called him a colonizer.
Mm-hmm. That's the first time I ever heard it used that way, was when I saw Black Panther.
Oh, not me. Not me.
The word novella, that's some colonizer cracker ass honky shit right there. Novella.
I used to watch the Brazilian TV novellas.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty good. I didn't understand a goddamn thing that was being said, but some of them are actually pretty good.
I think Portuguese is a nice language to listen to, though.
Yeah. Well, no, my boyfriend.
I can't understand. It's less aggressive than, I don't know, some other languages.
My boyfriend at the time was Puerto Rican, and he didn't speak Portuguese, obviously, but Spanish and Portuguese are so close that he could translate. And he used to watch the novella, so I would watch it with him. There was Mexican ones and another that were actually Spanish language, but he watched, a big mix of them. Betty La Fea was one we used to watch all the time, which eventually became a TV show in the States. Ugly Betty.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
I thought Ugly Betty was based on The Devil Wears Prada. No?
No. It's an old TV novella.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, wow.
Betty La Fea, much more dramatic. The Spanish version is much more dramatic.
Now you mentioned language that it doesn't sound. It has a nice sound, or probably the worst one. Would you all agree that the one that sounds the least smooth and such is German? It sounds the most guttural, wouldn't you say? There's almost nothing you can say that sounds pleasant in German.
It's like that joke, right? Life is short, so tell the people you love that you love them. Life is also scary, so yell at them in German.
I don't know. There's other languages in that sort of same neighborhood. I don't know. German does sound kind of aggressive to me personally, but that's just me. And maybe I've been brainwashed to think like that. I'm open to that.
It's
right?
all those old World War II movies, right?
Well, I grew up watching Hogan's Heroes, for example, right? And, I mean, even though they're goofy Germans in that TV show, still, I was brainwashed to think Germans are evil. It's just, I just know that about, the culture I was raised in.
Germans are actually pretty cool. I actually had a really close friend in college that she was German, and she was an awesome partner. She was the smartest one there. So I couldn't actually pick up the language
when I lived in the UK. But they don't. I never visited Germany, although I have been invited a few times. But no, I don't know. Other languages, though, I find quite fascinating to listen to. Some of them are very lyrical. I think Italian is very lyrical, and I don't even know. When I'm listening to someone, when I used to live in London, you hear a lot of people from Southeast Asia or Southern Asia as well, India, Pakistan, that sort of. But India's got like 26 different languages. So when you hear Indian people speaking, I don't know which one it is. I'm not that versed, right? I can't tell Gujarati from Hindi. Would not be able to tell you,
I only heard of one of those things.
Right.
So I think, but I used to own a deli, and most of you know that. And I had a German guy that used to come in all the time and complain about the bread. And after a while, I started calling him the bread Nazi.
Did you tell him that to his face?
No. But we see him in the parking lot, and everybody be like, "Oh, the bread Nazi." Yeah, I mean, we would order rolls from there's like big companies, big bakeries that supply restaurants and delis and stuff with their rolls. We don't make them, right? I wish I had that kind of money and equipment and everything else to be able to do that, but it wasn't the case. So anyway, he used to complain about the rolls like I was making them, and it was just ridiculous. It was just the craziest shit. He would get a roll, and then he'd be like, "You call this a roll?" Yeah.
Of all these words that we've had bandied around between cracker all the way to colonizer, the word Nazi would offend me the most.
If somebody called you a Nazi,
calling me a Nazi,
just in general,
that would get my attention. I'd be like, "What the fuck did I do?"
If somebody's calling you a Nazi, you can rest assured you did something.
And I'm just saying, it feels like a colored slur. In that, I can't imagine calling a person of color a Nazi without it feeling like it fell flat. It's a white people thing to do Nazi stuff.
Yeah, I've never been called a Nazi, and seriously, actually, I have. By that, I made a video about the lady who thought I was a Nazi. Okay, so this is a funny story. So I was in Penzance in my shop when I had a body piercing studio back in the day, and this group of Christians walked by with signs and stuff. There was about a dozen of them or so, and it's about the end of the world is nigh and all this kind of stuff. And so I said to my girl on the staff, I'm like, "Jen, I'm going to go and interview those people. I'll be right back." So I go chasing them up the street. And I'm saying, "Hello, would you mind if I ask you guys a few questions and record it for my video channel?" And the one lady, she's looking at me, and I'm short sleeves in summertime, so I got a few tattoos, right? And she looks at me and she's like, "Why would you want to do that?" And I'm just interested to show my audience, what you guys are all about. And she looks at me, and so I got my bald head, and back then I had big, massive glass earrings. And she's like, "Are you a Nazi?" And I look at my tattoos, and there's like a Muslim crescent there, right? And I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. You got me. My Muslim, my Nazi bubbles, And I couldn't believe the fucking nerve of it. But long story short, I did get to interview them later on. But yeah, she thought I was a Nazi, and I used to find it amusing that back in the day, like especially when I had my long earrings, how many people thought I was either a Nazi or gay. And I'm thinking, okay, I suppose you could be both, but it just seemed like kind of confusing that my look at the time meant one thing to one group of people and another thing to another group of people.
There's I can't remember.
It seemed like kind of confusing that my look at the time meant one thing to one group. Who's that?
Wow, who is that? Wow, that was crazy. So I can't think of it. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was in the Trump administration, and he was a gay Nazi.
Oh, the guy with the Hungarian guy.
He was actually the ambassador to Germany, and they practically kicked him out of the country.
It's like this name would start with a K. It's like I'm having a mental block right now. But yeah.
Richard something. What's his name?
But yeah,
Crust.
well, nobody could seriously think anybody here is a Nazi, right?
Crust?
Seriously.
Now, I mean, back then, though, I mean, there was a period of time where you couldn't have a shaved head without people wondering, what's going on.
Well, I think that was part of it. Yeah, my shaved head was part of it, But
now it's just commonplace. Now you just see it everywhere. So.
Right, yeah. Well, hell, when I started shaving my head was 1996, and at the time, for a young man especially, it just seemed like I was the only person I knew in my town had a bald head. And all of a sudden, all my kids' friends were afraid of me, which was really hilarious to me because I was still the same person, but all of a sudden they were afraid of me. Don't know. Yeah.
You look more threatening with a bald head.
I guess. I don't know. I think I look so much better with a bald head. It's not even funny, Otherwise, I'm stuck with the fucking crescent of white hair now. That's not fun, So.
Man, I'm suddenly thinking of some videos I've seen of someone who their kids have never seen their father without facial hair, and so they recorded how the kids, ranging from 2 to 5 years old, around there. That's the age range of the kids. And, they all started crying, and one of them started screaming and ran to a room and closed the door. And because
one time when I used to have my shop, I used to sell colored contact lenses, and I got myself a pair of red contact lenses, and I was wearing them just all day. And then my kids were at their mom's house for the weekend, and then they came back on the Sunday afternoon. And I opened up the door, and my kids saw my red eyes, and they literally jumped up and screamed and went running down the street. It was like a freaking cartoon. It was awful. And I forgot they were in there. See, I forgot they were there. And they thought I was totally possessed by the devil. Yeah, good times.
Wow.
I'm like, guys, it's all right. It's still me. I'm like, oh. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody is writing in the chat that they like Nikki's chair better than my chair.
Well, my chair is better than your chair. It's lazy boy, swivels. I can put my feet up, play video games.
This is a lazy boy, and it swivels.
Oh.
I put the swivel in.
Yeah, but okay. Here's the difference. In the summertime, you're not going to stick to Nikki's.
Yeah, right.
True. Yeah, I kind of, when I got rid of all the living room stuff and the old entertainment center, I just made my desk with the computers is pretty much where I spend my time. So I figured I needed a comfortable chair where I spend my time. So I figured I'd move the lazy boy in here. One thing led to another.
Fair enough.
You just got to have a very good ergonomic setup to be able to enjoy life.
I work 8 to 10 hours a day out of this chair. I better be.
Oh my God. You're going to become a part of the chair, Michael. Or the chair is going to become part of you.
My ass print is in the chair.
Yeah. You must have a pretty intimate relationship with that chair by now.
Yeah. I can get it sticky and it doesn't have to be summer. Yes.
Should tell them about the mouse story.
It wasn't this chair.
Oh.
Oh no. We had a mouse and it ate the wire from my headphones, and it left little pieces of it in our couch. And so I had to tear apart a couch looking for any trace of mice, and it was a horrible day I had 2 days ago.
Sounds
That's
pretty
awful.
traumatic.
Did you find the mouse?
No, we've been going room to room, just making
Are
sure.
you leaving traps down for a mouse?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, you got to worry about it with you got a dog, don't you?
our two dogs are useless.
Oh. Yeah. What I mean is, if you set traps, you don't have to. You have to be careful of the kind of traps you use so the dogs don't get into them. Is what I was getting at.
You got to stick it in places that the dogs will go.
You can't hunt for mice by going room to room. They're a little bit smarter than that. You need a cat.
Oh, that reminds me. Today I was just chilling in the bedroom, and outside my window walked a bobcat, a gray bobcat, which I've never seen in real life before. So that was pretty fucking cool, man. I was really happy about that because I've seen tracks in the snow last winter, but I've never actually seen a real one in life before. So.
We have them here too. They're pretty cool.
You got bobcats in New Jersey?
Yeah, we have mountain lion. We have mountain lion too. Mountain lion, bobcat, and black bear.
Why do you think mountain lions and bobcats are two different things?
The bobcat's smaller.
Yeah.
Bobcats are way smaller.
They're different. They're different animals.
They're different animals.
Yeah, a mountain lion is also called a cougar. In the southern hemisphere, they call them a puma, but it's basically the same thing. You know.
You have those out by you, but we have them here too. I live by near High Point, which is a state park, and they've been photographed there. So
wow,
mountain lion. So yeah, I saw one. 90% short was one running across the road near wildlife refuge, and it was a big cat. It was a large cat, and you could tell by the tail because it was like running into the woods. So I live in a rural area, Paul. I mean, it's all woods and mountains here.
Yeah, but people have been living there for so long. I thought all the real big wildlife would have been scared away a century ago. You know what I mean?
Well, really. not really, not where I live.
Because I don't really have. I don't like. We have some dangerous things, but like the black bear around here. I mean, they're like big raccoons. Just kind of shoo them away from the trash once in a while. Although I have seen a scary one, but the ones that are really scary are the elk, because especially in the fall they can get real dangerous when you're out on the trail.
They're massive as well. They're way bigger than you think. You know. You see one on the side of the road, oh, there's an elk. And then you see one 10 feet away, and you're like, oh, fuck, there's an elk. You know what I mean?
I was camping one time alone with just me and my dog, and like a whole herd of them come into the camp in the middle of the night, and they're like stomping around the camp. And we're both like, I hope they don't step on us and get mad and everything. It's a pretty scary night.
It was like a moose. A moose is huge, too.
Oh, God, yeah. Moose are bigger than horses, you know.
We have a white-tailed deer here. That's about it. I think that's why there was whitetail. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's good eating. Good venison.
Yeah.
In a normal year, this would be elk rutting season around where Paul lives. But climate change has messed up like the cycles of all the animals. So it might be that wasn't like last week. It should be next week.
Well, I don't really know because I'm still sort of newish here. But I mean, last autumn we had deer in the yard almost every single day, and this autumn hardly. I mean, they still come once in a while, but you can go weeks at a time without seeing any. And that's last year. There was never more than a week that went by without deer.
Yeah.
And so I think they're staying higher up because they can, which is further away from most of the people. But because I mean, when you look at the divide right now, there's some snow in the very, very interior of the divide. But here on the edge, there's really no snow around. So,
just to kind of go back to what Mike was saying with the elk and rut, I was up there in Estes Park, which is kind of the main area to see them and rut, and I was talking to a park ranger a week ago. It was December 8th. Anyway, he said that the rut this year was last in October because they were just it was just a weird time this year.
Well, yeah, and I'm always nervous when you don't get a lot of snow or rain in this part of the world in the wintertime, because that means it's going to be a very dry summer, and I don't like the idea. I mean, the last 2 summers especially, it's just everything's been burning so much, and I just don't like the idea.
Well, climate change. I mean, maybe we should talk about that a little bit. I mean, that's a big one, and we're getting all these crazy storms all over.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about that tornado last time, I think, because it was pretty much fresh news at the time. Because that tornado lasted for 200 miles, which is absolutely unheard of. And what really bugs me is, how come, maybe we could talk about this as well as climate change, but how come Fox News isn't held liable for the fucking lies that they tell in terms of the damage that they cause and climate change is a perfect example of it. It's a perfect example of it.
First Amendment.
First, I know that you're free to tell a lie, but if you're the media, are you free to deliver? I don't know, man. It's just
they should not be able to be called news. They should absolutely be forced to be called entertainment.
So I'd like to talk to this one because I interviewed Jenna from Belgium a couple weeks ago, and I encourage people to watch that on my channel, the interview with Jenna. But we were talking after that off camera, and she was saying that certain regions there, the people have gotten together and they don't allow the media to air things that are wrong in those areas. And so like some of the conservatives that were too radical got closed out of those areas. And so that has helped them, but the people had to actually make the change to make the law to make that happen.
Okay, so I've seen people posting stories about how they get Fox News as part of their cable package or whatever entertainment media package that they're getting from whatever company, and that they've asked specifically to have Fox removed from their package. And there were some people said they had to pay a little bit more to get rid of Fox. There were some that said they actually saved money by getting rid of Fox. I guess it all depends on the individual cable companies. But that's what some people are doing. So I would recommend to everybody, if you have the ability, I stream. I don't have cable, so.
Yeah. I think if someone was to do that, they'd probably lose CNN and MSNBC as well, though. They'd probably.
What they're saying is, I'll take everything else. I don't want Fox.
Right.
They're specifically requesting no Fox.
Like once upon a time, we said, I want my MTV. Now you can just call up your cable company, say, I don't want Fox. And ask for it delete. Will they actually delete it though, or was it just going to be logged as an objection?
No, there are people posting their stories saying that they no longer have Fox as part of their package.
Right.
For some people, they paid a little bit more. For some people, they actually saved money by doing it because Fox charges the cable companies, to carry their channel. So,
hopefully, Sirius will be back in just a moment.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
And I would say, not just for like a April Fool's joke, everyone should go to their parents' house and use the V-chip function on the cable box and just restrict access to Fox News. Just make it so that when they push up on their channel button, it just goes past it.
Well, I think it's that the problem is much deeper. That it's hard to restrict some and not another. And I think what it really boils down to is people need to demand quality, demand truth. And that's hard to do. They're not fact checking. We don't have enough watchdog groups to counter that.
Yeah, and the same, yeah. And it should be for all of the networks too, because all the networks have had issues with not being truthful or stretching things to try to get more views. So
we need to return to the fairness doctrine.
This week, I'm pretty sure Fox News is banking on that people aren't watching other news sources if they're watching Fox News, because all of the texts that went to the president's
Mark Meadows
and others that were basically trying to get the president to send all the people home on January 6th. All those texts lined up right next to the news stories that those newscasters were put out. Like it's night and day.
Right.
Behind the scenes, they're begging with the president, "You're ruining your legacy."
Yeah.
And then to the camera, they're completely an opposite person.
Yeah. So behind the scenes, they're basically admitting that they know those are Trump's people. And to the camera on the day, they're saying, no, this is Antifa. This is all an infiltration, blah, blah, blah. Our people would never do this. And then once we found out that we couldn't avoid the fact that it was Trump people, then the narrative had to go to, well, hey, it was like a day out and it got a little out of hand. which is outrageous. Anybody who watched it live knows better than that. And pretty much everybody watched it live, didn't they? I mean, I'm sure some people were at work that day, but I definitely watched it live. And
watching our capital get sacked is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't get to see it live until I got home, but I was listening on the radio. One of my employees called me. Actually, I was on the way back from a customer site, and she called me. She said, "Have you seen what's going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "They're attacking the Capitol." And mind you, she's like a religious conservative Republican, and she was appalled.
Right. Well, I mean, I had a few friends on Facebook who were saying something along the lines of blah, 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 patriots. And I normally don't like to say anything political on my Facebook, but I'm sorry. I'm like, anybody who thinks that's a patriotic thing that happened today is not my friend.
Okay, so I'm gonna bite the hook. I'm gonna go ahead and go for it. Hey, Proctor Hawk, there's nobody in here that's like extreme or radical or far out from anything that you might experience in your daily life. If we are like really far out there compared to what you're dealing with in your daily life, then you are an extremist and you're surrounded by extremists. I'm sorry. We are not that far left. No one here is that far left. Not even Jack. Not even Jack.
We're most of us are pretty far left, honestly. Most of us are pretty far left.
Then what you compare us to, right?
Yeah, then you don't really know what the left is.
I mean, and the left as it's viewed in the United States.
Yes.
So which is different than the rest of the world, because in this country, the center of this country is to the right. So I'm just saying, in contrast, the way that we are is still considered pretty far to the left in contrast to the rest of the country.
I come up on every political compass as classical liberal.
Okay, if you're going to compare this group to like everybody in the country, when you take into consideration that Tucker Carlson is a person that's alive in this country, we might seem really far left. The reality is in the United States, though, nobody in this chat, nobody on this panel is any kind of extreme leftist. None of us. No one. To say that we're radical, if you're a conservative who thinks that we're radical, with conservative ideas like we have, like, the tax rate from the 1950s, which I think we should go back to, which is a conservative idea. If we are radical for that, then that means he's hanging around some really extreme right wingers. So,
do you consider a lot of the stuff that goes on Twitter, for instance? Do you consider that to be extreme left in a lot of cases?
I consider what goes on Twitter to be real.
Yes, but regardless, though, do you consider a lot of that to be extreme left?
I don't pay attention to it really because I don't consider any of it real. These aren't real.
Twitter is you curate your own Twitter, right? So, I mean, I don't see extreme left stuff on Twitter or really extreme right stuff on Twitter because that's not where my algorithm doesn't get that stuff, because that's not what I'm subscribed to. So,
in Proctor Hawk's defense, there are no conservatives on the show. This is not the platform to talk to conservatives with.
Having said that, I still invite Wayne Watley every week, but usually he's busy on a Saturday. And I used to have Brock, of course, but Brock doesn't call conservative self anymore. Call himself a conservative anymore. He calls himself a libertarian. But
we're failing you as a platform to talk to conservatives. So what I'm going to recommend to you is a Ouija board because your conservative friends are dying from COVID.
Right.
Well, hey, that's the thing, though. To be fair, as far as what things really are, the reason why Brock doesn't identify as conservative anymore is because I won't say none. There's exceedingly few people that fit the classical definition of conservative on the right wing. The right wing is so far right and radical that basically, Mitt Romney, John McCain, those are classical conservatives. If he was still alive,
Bob Dole.
Bob Dole. He just died the other day. Those aren't conservatives. In fact, a friend of mine, he's religious and conservative, and he tends to vote Republican. He said as far back as when George W. Bush was president, that George W. Bush was not a conservative, that he was a radical. So Well, what we have now is far to the right of Bush.
I will go so far as to say John McCain was the last Republican I did vote for. And then they just the rest of them just went off the deep end, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of been I've been maybe more classic liberal, but they kind of, I'm pro-capitalist and stuff. And then you got people lying and saying I'm a socialist and I'm a communist and all this other stuff. And that's the problem, is those kinds of extreme language kind of shut down any dialogue. We're not able to build those bridges and come to some kind of an agreement.
A lot of people don't even understand what those terms mean. Proctor Hawk saying that he comes up on those political compass charts as a left-wing libertarian, as if that's something weird or special. Just the way he said that, this kind of, I came up left-wing libertarian. I mean, I don't know, are you a social libertarian, a libertarian socialist?
I'm a left-wing libertarian as well.
When I do the political compassing, I come out as a libertarian socialist. So I mean,
Oh, we did the 8 ways one, and that one I came out as a libertarian socialist. But on the political compass one, which is the 4-axis one, I came out in Karl Marx's beard. So,
yeah, I am neither a socialist. I'm definitely not a communist. And I'm not a socialist. But again, because I actually know what the words mean. And I'm not for government controlling the means of production nor distribution. However, I think that something like a single payer system, which is not socialist, or if anyone considers it, it's minimally socialist because the government's paying for it. But yeah, and that's practical. I won't explain it again, but I've explained it many times as to why that's a practical solution. Because I'm a pragmatist at the end of the day. I don't really care if an idea is right wing, left wing, whatever wing you want, as long as it works.
Why does it work?
We have gotten so upside down in this country, especially with our tax code and stuff, where the rich don't pay any taxes, but the working class does. I mean,
see, that's why
we need to go back to a progressive tax system where the rich are utilizing more of our resources and they need to pay more of the share, and then the poor who can't afford it need to pay less.
right.
That's why I liked AOC's idea about going back to the tax code of the 1950s. And people are like, oh my God, what a radical idea. It was the tax code of the 1950s. Yeah. They're the crazy socialist years of the 50s.
Of Dwight Eisenhower Republican.
It was crazy, progressive, wild times.
Well, so the social programs provide a safety net and a correction for the problems of a capitalist system. That's what, because capitalism is flawed, but if you correct that with social programs, it actually kind of works.
There you go. Because I was going to say, like, on paper, right, as a system, as an ideology, I'm actually quite sympathetic to communism. But like Joe just said, I'm a pragmatist, and communism is quite frankly contrary to human nature for most people. For most people. I mean, you'd have to raise every baby would have to be raised that this is a good thing. And then it would also have to be a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, and the thing is, I mean, technically we technically still have sort of a progressive tax code. The problem is there's so many outs and loopholes for the wealthy to get away with not paying anything. But
you can put that money overseas and then just repatriate it when you get a Republican in office.
Exactly. So, and of course, I mean, even if we went back to the tax rates when Bill Clinton was president. The last time we had a surplus, and which was basically the top marginal rate was 39% compared to now it's like 35. So again, we're not talking about a massive swing. But that shows you the difference of how even that few percent makes a huge difference in what shows up in the coffers. During the 2004 election cycle, I supported Wesley Clark, and military guy. I picked him for a few reasons. One, because he was a military guy and he had a long history. So he was unassailable in the way that John Kerry was vulnerable when Kerry threw his medals over the fence and all that crap. So he was also religious, although he wasn't a fundamentalist, so he wasn't assailable on that. And he also knew he had foreign policy experience. And one thing that he made a big point of, he goes the right wing attacks us as the tax and spend liberals, because But the Republicans are the borrow and spend liberals. He goes, at least we're paying for the things, we're trying to pay for the things that we want. They basically want to borrow, and this is really what they do. They borrow, they run up the debt to ridiculous levels, and they whatever they produce, and then people go, oh well, things are cool, yeah, because you didn't pay for it yet. And then they say, oh, we can't raise the debt ceiling. Oh, we can't spend more money. No, you already spent it. You have to now pay. You actually have to, borrow the money to cover what you spent.
So it's you can't say anything. It's the internet. You can't say anything. So apparently now there is a communist amongst our ranks. We can figure out which one is the communist. We can.
Well, that'll be me because I said communism makes sense on paper, so therefore I must be a communist, right?
We could just question every single one of you individually to find out where your allegiances lie.
Yeah. Where were you on the night of the 14th?
Yeah.
Have you no decency, sir? At long last.
When I was younger, and the Cold War was still a thing. When you traveled abroad, you had to fill out a thing. Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Coming back into America or something like that. You had to fill it out like a little thing they give you on the plane. It's kind of funny, but they don't do that anymore, thankfully.
Well, they do other kinds of things for people like me.
Well, yeah, my friend Jess, she's a trans woman, and she refuses to fly because of the indignities that they put trans women through, especially in the airport.
Well, that's something I never actually gave any thought to, is going through airports. I mean,
well, early on, you got different parts, and when you go through those bio scanners, it really raises red flags. And the TSA didn't really know how to handle that, so it was basically strip searches at first. But then,
oh wow.
I know actually one of the therapists, the psychologists who really worked with the TSA to kind of change some of that culture. So a lot of that's been changed now. But.
Okay. Well, see, but even before that, they were educated. Think about how screwed up it was. It was a part of your body. It wasn't like you were packing something that's going to be, my appendages are packing
explosive appendages.
I actually haven't traveled yet, and nor have I even given it thought. Now I'm like, wow, oh shit.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just had a trans sister. I put her on an airplane last week, and she was fine. I mean, they did kind of give her a hard time about the underwire in her bra, but other than that, she was fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was literally just like, well, we want to fuck with her, so let's come up with some bullshit that we.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of patted her down or whatever.
Yeah, it's just like the incredible number of times that I'm randomly selected for higher scrutiny. Random, wow, 90% of the times I've been through the airport, I've been randomly selected. Wow, what are the odds of that?
Usually, go ahead.
I was just saying it's because he looks Mexican.
It's a running joke. Nikki, do you know Dick Coughlin? Richard Coughlin?
What was the question?
Do you know Richard Coughlin?
No.
Oh, okay. He's a longtime atheist YouTuber. He has had this running thing of saying that I'm not black, I'm Mexican, and so the Raven has been piggybacking off of that. So that's become an ongoing thing on the show.
I'm sorry, I'm a little not into YouTube culture that much. So I mean, I know some of the big names, but not everybody.
He was
which is unusual for a YouTuber, but
I think if I fly, I'll volunteer for the grope instead of the scan. Depends on who's doing the groping.
Well,
you're muted, Kizzy.
Just like
Dick Coughlin used to be popular, but anyone who's come into YouTube in the past 5 years probably hasn't heard of him, no matter how many others that they've heard of that have been, Dick Coughlin, his heyday was, around 2010.
Same as me. Pretty much. Yeah.
I don't know that I ever had a heyday, but 2011, 2012 is when I was attracting subscribers. Sort of.
I definitely had a heyday. I make no attempt at modesty. My channel was literally the best channel on YouTube for 2 straight years. And that's my opinion. I'm a little biased. I grant you that.
Really quick, I am impressed. So that Proctor Hawk referred to me as Dev. I haven't seen or heard anybody call me Dev in a while. Which reminds me, I was going to make a video. I was going to do it the other day. I'm going to make a video announcing the changing the name of my channel. Kind of hoping that kind of prompts me to start making videos again.
Yeah.
So.
What's your new name, or do you want to hold it for your video?
Oh, Raven J.
I wonder if Proctor was trying to like misgender you by dead naming you, and
Dev
doesn't realize that Dev
Well,
Shout
Dev-
is a girl's name anyway.
Well, I don't believe it's a dead name. So, because I remember Raven saying in another hangout that that's just a name that she'll associate herself with for years to come.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually was motivated to make some videos recently, but I really desperately need a haircut, and I'm vain. So
I just got a haircut yesterday, actually, or 2 days ago. I hadn't cut my hair since September of 2019, so it was the first haircut.
Oh, wow.
yeah, my hair, when it starts to grow out, as you can see, gets a bit wild. The best haircut I ever got was in North Carolina. I was on a job startup, and I went to this barber shop, and it was a black barber shop, and this guy did this amazing cut, and it was so good that I didn't need another haircut because normally my hair grows out unevenly and it looks weird. He cut it so perfectly that my hair, I didn't need a haircut for almost 6 months.
Well, oh, go ahead.
I was just like, I was kind of scared to go in to get my haircut because it's kind of a new experience for me as in this gender role. And so I go in there and I'm like, not sure what to expect. And it's another trans woman cutting my hair. It was like instant connection. And she did a wonderful job.
Awesome.
So
that's great. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's funny. I used to say Dev a lot too, and I don't anymore. I just say Raven. I guess I don't know. I think what I started to do to avoid using the old name was I just made a conscious effort to just Raven, because I slipped a few times, and now that's so locked in my head that Dev doesn't even come up anymore.
Yeah,
I just love the name Raven. I think it's just a great name. I love it.
Same here.
So it sticks with me very, very easily.
It's funny is after I chose it, I asked my daughter what she thought, and she's like, "I'm not really crazy about it." And I said, "Well, it's your name and your brother's name put together." She goes, "Oh, in that case, I love it."
That's pretty funny. I just wanted to make the comment while you guys were talking about haircuts and stuff. Back when I lived in the UK, as you guys probably already remember, I didn't have a car for the 31 years, right? And I used to justify that in my heart by saying, look at how much good I've done for the environment because I haven't driven, 100,000 miles a year for 30 years. So that's a lot of carbon footprint that I've done. And I also used to say to myself, hey, man, think of all the money I haven't spent because I haven't had a car, because you never spend less than $5,000 a year on your car. Never. So $5,000 a year for 30 years, that's 150 grand I saved. Well, it just occurred to me on the same logic that I haven't had a haircut since 1995.
Wow.
So think of how much money I've saved.
Yeah, because they're expensive now.
Shaving my head.
Damn.
Scares me.
So you should be sitting on a mountain of cash, Paul. Where is it?
I got the mountain, but not the cash. What can I tell you?
Did you buy stock in Bic?
No, I don't own stock anymore. I used to own stock when I was a young man back in the day. And I was all young and ambitious, And then I sold it and bought a Corvette. And that's the truth.
Priorities.
Yeah, these days as well, just for entertainment's sake, you know, I'm never going to get another Corvette, of course, but I found a website that's like you can buy cars from all over the country, and I just do car porn all the time now. I just go on there and I'm going to search Barracudas, and I go 1967 and 1974 Barracuda, and some of these cars, oh my God, they're beautiful, and like, frankly, if I needed to buy a new car and my budget was, I don't know, say I wanted to get a luxury car or a nice car and my budget was like 70 or 80 grand or whatever, I would much sooner get an old Corvette than a new one because they're as good as brand new. Every single part on these cars is brand new.
Yeah.
So like, why the hell would you go buy a brand new car? I mean, the answer is I don't really want to buy a petrol car though, because you know they're going to be dinosaurs in the next 10 years, right? And every gasoline powered car that you get is a liability at this point.
I was thinking though, if you still had that Corvette and had kept it up, you'd actually be sitting on a decent amount of value.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. Back in those days, that was when I had hot rods, and so my Corvette, I completely it adulterated it to the point where it was a hot rod Corvette. It wasn't. I mean, a lot of these Corvettes that you see that I'm talking about are basically returned to stock condition.
Right.
Every single thing on it is brand new, and it's like I say, I would so much rather have that kind of a car than a brand new car in a million years. You know, so
calling gasoline petrol is definitely colonizer bullshit. Definitely.
Calling it gasoline is worse.
I use diesel.
But it is.
Fuel.
That's what it is.
Diesel.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure. Did Rockefeller start it? Was it really Rockefeller, or who actually made gasoline for the first time? Joe's straight up on the internet. Boom. Google is my friend.
Okay. Charles Edgar Duryea and his brother Frank. That's a successful gas powered car. So they weren't the first to make gasoline, but they were the first to make gasoline.
Right. Well,
first crude oil well in 1859 to produce kerosene for lighting.
Yeah, it took probably to replace whale oil, lamp oil.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the British who call it petrol.
The Germans
who are the colonizers.
Germans call it benzene.
I see where you're going with that, Mike, because Britain colonized 40% of the planet, right? So therefore, they're the real colonizers, not us Americans who just took over the Philippines and Panama, right? I mean,
and those we stole from the Spanish,
huh?
And those we took from the Spanish,
right, and well, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. We didn't take them first. We just took them from the previous colonizer.
But I mean, I think all Americans of European descent, anyway, are legitimately referred to as colonizers because you're of European descent. And you're in America, so boom, colonizer.
That reminded me. There's this very strange person on TikTok, I think, who's making these videos saying that the Roman Empire never existed and gathering quite a lot of attention. And then
hang on a minute, rewind.
Yeah.
Pause, play. Say that shit again.
Their contention is that the Roman Empire never existed.
Because of what? I mean, how does that serve anybody's interest to make that point?
They make these ridiculous things, and in some places they point out that there's Greek architecture in Italy, which of course, because the Greeks were through there and did control the territory at one time prior to the Roman Empire, it's just this whole litany of ridiculousness. And one of the things that if people, there have been a number of historians who basically come on and said, no, here's the evidence that shows that that's wrong, and then. Since most of these historians are white men, she calls them, she basically says, well, you're misogynist, you're cis male. So I said, I want to track her down and I want to criticize what she's saying and I want her because she won't know what I look like, and she'll call me a white male misogynist, and I'll say, no, actually, I'm black, colonizer. Throw it back
So,
in.
okay, the only way that what she's saying it even be even remotely close to having any sense to it at all if she were to add the word holy, because the Holy Roman Empire wasn't holy, wasn't Roman, and wasn't an empire. So,
But yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff. And then, so there's this one, like, I think it's the oldest piece of Latin written down that we have, and she's saying, "Oh, that's Greek," and like, no, you obviously don't know what the Greek alphabet looks like then or now. These are Latin characters, not Greek characters.
These people need to go to Rome.
And you can actually read, if you know any Latin, you can very easily read what it says, including it has the word Caesar or Caesar, written out, Caesar Maximus. And then
what Paul said, right? Rome is still a place.
You can go there and see it for yourself. I mean, I've been there twice. It's beautiful. I love it, but it's all right there. I mean, like, yeah.
So she said that basically it only, at most, it existed as like Disneyland, like a Disneyland of the time, and that Roman coins are actually just tokens. I'm like, what is wrong with this person? Like, are they're like the ultimate troll? Just trying to like, or do they actually believe this stuff?
It's what it really gets my goat is that some of these people with these cockamamie theories. I mean, the level of elaborateness they've gone to layer this theory with. I mean, have you ever heard of or looked into this theory called the electric universe?
No.
Basically, it's a theory that the universe is governed by electricity and blah blah blah. And man, it is detailed, and you can go way down that rabbit hole. And they try really hard to convince you, but I mean, if you know anything about anything, it can't be. I mean,
right.
And so it's like you're watching it going, okay, sooner or later they're gonna, but no, it's hard to get my head around it. It's worse. It's not as bad as flat earthers, but it's on the same level.
So how long have you had a goat?
What?
How long has Paul had a goat? He just talked about it just a minute ago. You guys didn't hear him talk about his goat? He said, "What really gets my goat?"
Oh my goat! Right, yeah. So
You got it.
here. So I have
What
a gong, but
what you said a few minutes ago, Paul, about the why. This is what gets me about the flat Earth people. Like, because most of the conspiracy people, that whatever ridiculous thing that they believe, you can understand a motivation behind why somebody might want to do that, even though it didn't happen that way. But you can get it, like the whole 9/11 truther bullshit. But you can understand why someone would want to believe that, or why somebody in the government might try would potentially like it could be possible. It isn't, but it could have been possible. You can think of,
I have a reason, Joe.
Why?
I have a reason. Okay, so the whole round Earth and space being a thing that we could traverse, that whole lie that the government tells us is for big NASA. That's how they make all their money.
Well, it's funny because they do say that, but they're like, yeah, but we believed that the Earth was a sphere long before NASA, like 2+ millennia before NASA existed.
No, we didn't. They just want you to think that. They just educated you.
Yes, NASA.
Accurately calculated the circumference of the Earth, and he actually may have accurately calculated the distance from the Earth to the Sun in like 300 BC. It's a long time ago.
So they say.
Yeah, and so it's just so crazy. And this thing now with the Roman Empire didn't exist, like. Big history. I mean, there's no, ask any historian what they have in the bank, and you'll probably cry. Not because it's so high, but because it's so low. You'll feel bad for them.
Well, okay, so there's like this trend of it's like a movement. It's a denier movement. They deny everything. There's Elvis deniers and evolution deniers and
Goat owning deniers.
Who?
People who deny that they own goats.
Oh, goat owning deniers, yes. And you can't talk about your goat and then deny having one. the hell's up with that? So yeah, I mean that's
Well, it's actually
Holocaust deniers.
even before the JFK conspiracy thing, there was the people who believed that Hitler wasn't really dead, and that he actually escaped to Brazil and all this. And the funny thing is,
Argentina.
Argentina. A couple years ago, well, it depends. I've heard both. A couple years ago, I heard somebody who's still on this. I'm like, he would be 116 years old. What's wrong with you?
Like some of the
moon landing deniers.
Moon landing deniers. I mean,
no, I get why. I get why a government would be motivated to fake the moon landing to try, because obviously there was the space race and prestige. But the people who believe this leave out the part that the Russians and Chinese were tracking us, and if we didn't do it, they would have known and would have said, "Hey, they're lying. They're lying."
It was all done in a Hollywood basement. It was in a Red Hot Chili Pepper song.
But why is it that people just want to believe the lies versus the simple truth or whatever? That's
see, because of the idea of that, secret knowledge, that you know something, you're in the know. That everybody else, it's just like the militia movement, which I remember when it was becoming a thing, like an open thing in the like late 80s and early 90s. The idea that it's not that you're just small ineffectual people with no opportunity, it's that the government is conspiring against you, and they got the black helicopters, and Jews are using black people to hold you down, and all this other crazy bullshit. That's much better to believe that you're a freedom fighter than just some schmuck.
So
I know something that these normies don't.
So you're saying it's kind of a product of a social disconnect, and then people aren't connected enough to.
Well, yeah, because if you see most of the people that you never see like normal, well-adjusted people with good careers that believe any of this shit. It's fringe people who have no prospects in their life.
So I mean, over the years we found Nazis, all over the world. Dying as I got old, whatever, and living secret lives, and a bunch of them here in the U.S. There were a bunch of Nazis that actually did go to Argentina.
Sure.
There was lots of them. So when they talk about the stories about Hitler going to Argentina or Brazil, a lot of those stories are based on stories of actual Nazis who actually did do it. Right. So then it becomes this whole plausible thing, and it's just like, well, that's actually a pretty good argument. But on the other hand, if Hitler were to have escaped to Argentina, he would have died eventually, and people would be like, "Hey, look, it's Hitler." I mean, it's not like nobody knows what he looks like.
Honestly, would you recognize Hitler without a mustache? Would you?
Yeah, probably.
I don't think I would.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to add that there's all sorts of people who believe in this sort of horse shit. It's not just down to people who aren't successful. There are people who are successful who believe in this shit too. So it's all over the place, honestly.
A
lot of it comes. Some of it, I'll say, some of it comes from people believing in other things without evidence. Allows them to believe in just about a number of other things without evidence as well. So I mean, it's mainly that element that allows them to believe this sort of thing, not how successful they are.
Well, that's why when I was making atheist videos and people would say to me, well, what's the big deal if people believe in a God even if it doesn't exist? I'm like, this is why, because once you throw out critical thinking, at least part of your life, you're open to all manner of crazy, ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also go further. I wanted to say about Joe. You said that people believe it because it gives them. They feel like they confer themselves with special knowledge, and I think there's an element of that for sure. But I also think it's a basic truism that we live under. That people who are prone to believing in conspiracy theories are more sensitive to this truism, and that is the government always lies, and because we know we can't trust our leaders. Therefore, everything our leaders gets thrown into suspicion, and that's not really justifiable. They only lie about certain things. They don't lie about everything. But
right. Well, and the thing is,
and they do it badly too. They lie. I mean, it's not even believable lies.
Well, that's the thing. And like I said, I get that, and that's why they said certain conspiracy theories even though they're not true, I get why someone might take it, because it's plausible, because there's a rational reason why the government might try to do a certain thing, or whatever. But it's like when it gets to like I said, the flat Earth stuff. Oh, my favorite are the people who they believe that there's the reptilians from the center of the Earth that have taken over and have infiltrated, and they come up with
You're not supposed to say that.
and I'm like, do you guys understand that this was literally the plot of the show V? Like, you took a TV show and started to believe it was real.
Well, that plot didn't come from nowhere, Joe. This theory's been around for some time.
Well, I mean, after The Matrix came out, there were a number of people who believed, similar things to the things that were in The Matrix. So,
oh yeah, how many people have come out and said, well, they're convinced that we must be living in a simulation? I'm like, no. I think it was even Elon Musk was like, he's like, it's like 90% likely we're living in a simulation. Like, no, that's not like that likely at all.
Yeah, but of course the thing is, if you were a simulation, you wouldn't know you were a simulation, and that's the argument, right? So, yeah.
But see, he knows, so therefore he can't be in a simulation.
You know what? It doesn't matter to me. I don't think it matters to most people. If there's like a 90% chance we're living in a simulation, which who the fuck even really would put any kind of weight on that number? Doesn't matter.
Well, I told you that's when if I actually get off my ass and start making videos again, I'm gonna do 10 questions atheists don't need to answer, but a couple that I will anyway. And it's basically the idea that's well, where did the universe come from? I don't fucking know. I don't even really care, really. I mean, I really don't even care. It doesn't. Not knowing has zero impact on my life. We're never gonna find out in my lifetime. I don't give a fuck.
We've actually found out a lot, but I was going to say, if we are living in a simulated universe, I want to know who the programmer is so I can bribe them,
Yeah.
Where did the universe come from? Don't know. Don't care. If a tree falls in the forest, nobody else here to hear it? Doesn't make a sound? Don't know. Don't care.
Well, I think therefore I am, so I exist. So everything must be okay.
Well, when I told you before, I always find it funny when solipsists argue with you about stuff, and I'm like, okay, and I'm not only soft solipsist, because again, we can't prove that we're not in the Matrix and all that crap, but people who are convinced that they are in some basically fabricated reality, and they're the only one other than specters, basically. And I'm like, you are arguing based on your philosophy. You are arguing with a specter. Do you know how ridiculous that makes you sound? If I don't exist, you're arguing with me. Or that's the same thing with hard determinists. They're like, well, everything is deterministic, and we have zero free will whatsoever. I'm like, all right, well then
I know you were going to say that.
Yeah. and then it's again, why you argue with me? And then it's like, then you don't get mad at me for disagreeing with you, because then I had no choice but to disagree with you.
Well, okay, I had a conversation back and forth on Facebook the other day. It wasn't really a conversation. It was more of a back and forth, and I kind of ended it pretty quick. But I was trying to explain to someone, a Bible thumper who lives near me, that if the God that they believe in is real, free will can't exist. You can't have the two at the same time, and she just was not catching that. It says right in the Bible. Okay. It says a lot of stuff.
It's hard when you're talking to somebody who can't think for themselves,
Yeah.
It's just like, if somebody knows all of your choices before you're even born, how do you have any will at all? Everything you're going to do is written.
And what's the point, really? What's the point?
And that's exactly then what's the point of living completely? So it's just, your God can't be all-knowing and still be God and still have free. Sorry, you can't have it all.
I just had to jump back real quick and say, I'm going to put it on the screen real quick. The Green Machine. I'm stealing that.
It is pretty good.
That's going to be the title of my very first screenplay. And yeah, I will not give you any credit or money. Sorry.
Anyway, I missed you when you came in. Hello, Vegas. How are you? Hi.
Hey, Vegas. And I never said, hey, Proctor, when you came in, too. And that was cool. So.
Just like, again, like real quick with the hard determinists, I'm like, any of these things. It's like people that are absolutely convinced. It's like, well, then but they also call themselves a skeptic. I'm like, well, you can't be, because there's literally no evidence that would support conclusively what you think. I mean, you can think it's likely, and I'll probably, I might agree with you to a certain degree, but it's just like when I tell people who like they try to assume that, well, I'm an atheist, so therefore, like, I'm convinced that I'm kind of convinced there's no God, but I don't. Do I know that absolutely? Could I be wrong? Sure, I accept the fact that I could be wrong. I don't see any reason why anything that supports that, but I'm not going around like it's absolutely definite, and everyone who thinks otherwise is a moron. Well, no, I don't think that.
The problem I have when talking to really fundamentalist believers is there's just not enough common ground to even build on. They don't function in a logic skeptic kind of way. They live by faith, and whatever that means for them. It's but if I could get somebody who's more of a liberal Gnostic, or kind of on the Christian-y, but like still believes in science, at least we got enough common ground to work from and build from that. And usually they will come to their own conclusions if you can just steer the conversation enough. But
so this woman that I was talking to, actually, she's a fellow Democrat. She's actually on the our town. Well, I don't think she's on there anymore. I think she left it, but she was on our town Democratic committee, and that's how I know her. So people were sending me messages going, "That woman's a Democrat."
Yeah. To Nikki's point, I mean, this is the reason why when I came to YouTube and started making videos and getting involved in discussions, I was never really addressing the fundamentalists for the exact reason you said. I felt that they're either unreachable or so it's going to take a lot more than I was willing to or even able to put forward. I wasn't so arrogant to think that I was going to convince them. My aim was always at those reachable people. And because here's the thing, those reachable people have a much better chance of persuading the fundamentalists than I ever would.
Right, because they're already an insider.
Right, they have a lot more in common. There's a lot. They have a similar framework to work off of. Because I used to be a believer too. So which I think there's one thing that.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah, that's one thing that's helped me, because it's not completely alien to me. Because like when I talk to people who grew up atheists and I hear some of the things they say, I'm like, well. You don't have the context to understand where they're coming from. I do. I don't agree with them, but I understand where they're coming from.
Say, just curious. I mean, since we're on this subject of religion and such, just curious for those who let's say have never believed in a higher power type of thing. When something comes up, you really hope for a situation, and you say to yourself, "Oh, please don't let this happen," or "Please, I hope this happens." When you think of when you're saying "please" to yourself, you're saying, "Oh, please don't let this happen." Who are you talking to? Are you talking to yourself? Are you declaring something at the situation? Or are you saying something to I mean, for myself, I can't help to think of it in the sense of saying it to a higher power, because that's how I was raised. Even though I would consider myself not religious anymore, still when I have this, "Oh, please," it ends up being somewhat religious. And so what is it for those who were not raised religious? What is that sense of, "Oh, please"? What is that too?
I was raised religious, so I can't completely answer your question. But I will say that now, today, when I do that, when I'm speaking inside to my inner self is a higher power. So,
as much as you're saying that in jest, that's kind of how I think of it too, Raven. I think I don't really pray to any higher power. I pray to myself. I'm the only actuator that can make anything happen in my life, right? So I don't even call it praying. And this is going to sound ridiculous. I might have told you the guys this before, but I mean, I talk to my little animals, all right? Because you've got your organs, you've got your cells, you've got your subatomic particles. I talk to them all. I thank them. Like when I used to do ketamine, I'm like, "Sorry guys, this is going to be a hard night." You know what I mean?
So I have a little story to add to that. I was a deacon on a church board for a little while, And I remember we were sitting around discussing whether or not to put a new roof on the church. And we were going to pray about it, and everybody came back. And we had this meeting the next time, and some people were like, "Oh yes, I think the Lord's telling us to take out a loan, use the credit, and put this new roof on." And some people were like, "Well, no, I think the Lord was telling me that we needed to do fundraisers and car washes and do this." And some other people had this other. The thing I realized was that everybody invented their own version of God or Jesus or whatever their deity is in their own mind as a confirmation bias that they. That
It's
they
pin
were,
the tail on the
and it's
deity.
a very dangerous concept because they all think that they're doing it's God's will, so God wills it, and then that makes it so much more dangerous than I think something, you know.
Agreed. Like Vegas, I know Vegas is being funny. I know that that's a cute little joke. I was an atheist, but so whenever I see anybody, and when I was more active in the Great Debate community online, on YouTube, you would see a lot of that kind of stuff. Where but then I saw the light, and honestly, they were never an atheist. I know it kind of sounds like a no true Scotsman, but it's really kind of not. Like once you understand that things are true and real, and that evidence means something, and once you understand that, you can never ever ever go back because you can't make yourself not know something. You know what I mean? So it's like I was raised a Christian. I did not um, basically declare outwardly out loud that I was a non-believer until I was in my late 30s. That was on YouTube, and no true atheist, no true atheist. But once you know certain things, you can't unknow them. So it's not a matter of belief. There are things that I know that are true, that I know for a fact are true, and one of those things is how science works, and about predictions, and about how the sun will come up tomorrow, not because of anything other than it has before.
Never miscommunications.
Yeah, you don't get to believe what's real. You got to discover what's real. It exists outside of what I think about it.
And once you know that, once you understand that, you can't unknow it. It just doesn't go away. So I can never be converted back to an Abrahamic faith. I'm not saying I couldn't convert it to some other kind of faith. Who the hell knows? But like an Abrahamic faith.
Well, there is a burden of evidence that God could, come down here and show himself or herself.
I want to read a quote from Susan B. Anthony. I distrust those people who know so well what God wants them to do because I always notice it always coincides with their own desires.
Right.
And I can see how if you're in a church and then you realize, wait a minute, every single person, they all think God's telling them to do X, Y, and Z. They can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. Well,
right.
Like, I forget, it might have been 2004 or 2008. I think it's 2008 Republican primary. There were like 6 or 7 candidates that all said that God told them to run. And then, of course, like none of them won. And then I remember like making a joke that like, yeah, I get it. God has a sense of humor and like punking people because
The tide goes in, the tide goes out. Wasn't that like Bill O'Reilly? It was Bill O'Reilly. Yeah, I mean, it was a great quote. And what's even greater is we know the answer to that. We know why that happens. And we can't say we don't know it because we do.
How simplistic his thought was when he thought, about the sun coming up, which of course we know the sun doesn't come up, the earth rotates. But he's like, never a miscommunication. Like, why would it stop? Like, it's like if you understand anything about basic physics, you'd understand. Well, it just it's spinning and gravity and it's moving around the sun and it's just going to keep doing that until the sun expands and it consumes it.
But I tell you, when and I've said this before, when my dad died earlier this year, I was jealous during the service of all of the Christians that were there who had something. They had a crutch, they had something to lean on. They had that, and I was acutely aware that being an atheist, I didn't have it. That's not something you have, and sometimes a comfort out of ignorance is better than cold hard knowledge.
I'll tell you a true story, just if I may, Joe, real quick. I'll tell you a true story that you're just reminding me of, Raven. When my son was 10 years old, he had appendicitis and he nearly died twice in the hospital. And between the first time and the second time when he nearly died, I mean, I was looking at him and I'm thinking to myself, you know, the kid's 10, right? And I was, in a strange way, I mean, I would have been fucking gutted, of course, if my kid died, for sure. But there was also a part of me that was at peace with it, because I thought to myself, you know, he knows I love him. I know he loves me. Everything that needs to be done has been done, you know, and sometimes life just doesn't work. Sometimes this is sometimes the way it happens. And I was thinking to myself that I was relatively at peace with it in my lack of needing that crutch. And then it occurred to me that if someone walked up to me right now and said, "Did you want to have us say a prayer for your son?" I probably would have punched him in the fucking face. You know, and I'm not a violent person, but if someone said to me in that moment, "We need to worry about your son's salvation just in case," I would have been fucking livid.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, my experience has been more like Paul's, both with people that I lost since I became an atheist, and also even in regard to people I lost before I became an atheist. That, you know, the accepting that finality, that they're gone, I'm never going to see them again, and that's sad. But it's kind of inspired me to appreciate the time that I had with them more. Because that was precious time that I'll never get back. It's with one exception. My dog Blitzen died. It'll be 2 years in March, and it still hurts, even though we got 2 new dogs and I love them.
All dogs go to heaven, you know. That's the rule.
And she was my all-time favorite being, creature, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever known in my life. And knowing that, you know, there won't ever be another like her, that digs at me in a way that the humans in my life don't hurt me in the same way.
I understand.
It's very strange.
It's always the death of the innocent that hurts the most, I think.
Well, I mean, pets love us unconditionally, and and humans aren't that way. Humans don't love unconditionally. So
I think that's a big part of it, because I think of everyone who I've known, that I've cared about, who's died. You know, we had our good moments and we had our bad moments. You know, we had way more good than bad. But you're right; nothing was unconditional. But with her, you know, we just had this special bond, and I need to go off camera for a minute.
Sorry, Joe. But no, the whole unconditional thing. I mean, do you think in romantic relationships between adults, unconditional love is possible?
What a question.
Well, I mean, I know that there can be an unconditional love between a mother and a child.
Right, or a father, thank you.
Yeah. But as far as beyond that, I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but it's certainly not very common.
It's tough to say that, because all love is sort of conditional, even with a dog. You know, if they were aggressive or something, there might be some situations where it wouldn't be. Everything is conditional. It's unfortunately.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But that's you loving the dog. The dog will give you love pretty much whether you beat it or don't feed it. I mean, dogs are amazing like that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
So
I wanted to address something in the chat real quick. Propter Hawk saying that the great debate really isn't so great on Green Machine. I always took that great sarcastically. I always took it as it was a great debate, as in they were debating the big picture or the big things that really mattered. Big ideas. That's the way I always understood the great debate to mean. So
I like what Proper Hawk is saying now. I wouldn't want unconditional love in a relationship, because that's true. You don't want someone to love you unconditional, because it does take a balance in the relationship to have mutual respect for each other when it comes to two consenting adults.
You've kind of echoed my own opinion, basically, because if someone actually loved me in a romantic sense unconditionally, that means it wouldn't matter what I did. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's a power I never want to have.
Yeah, it's very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Kazoom, you wanted to know who it is that I'm trying to entreat when I really, really want something, and who am I speaking to?
Yeah.
The programmer of the simulation.
It's a big P.
Yeah.
When I speak out loud like that, though, I am kind of talking to myself, because, like I say, I'm the only one with any power in my life. So, that's the way I look at it. But I do that thing that Kazum was just saying, and I act like I'm speaking to the universe, as if the universe is a thing that can hear,
Hey, Jonah Bell, it's good to see you. That's my girlfriend.
Oh,
there we go.
Welcome.
Somebody just sent me porn on Facebook over Messenger. It's like, what the fuck?
Just another dick pic, another day.
It's not even. If it was just a dick pic, it would be like, hey, a dick pic. But it's straight out porn. My God.
No one's ever sent me porn or a dick pic, and I have never sent porn or a dick pic to anyone else. So I reckon my karma's pretty level there.
Well, I'll tell you, get some boobs. Life changes for you.
Hold on, Paul.
Yeah, right.
Here we go.
Very fast.
That's the quote of the day. Thank you very much.
It's true, though. It's very fast. It happens very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, mine are only like 4 weeks old.
Yeah, I mean, I've had mine for a long, long time. I just started presenting in June. And I have picked up 3,000 friends on Facebook. And I get hundreds of messages a day. And all I did was post a picture of some cleavage. And it's crazy. It's insane. It's really insane. So I decided to start posting a link to my wish list. And none of these cheap fuckers buy me anything.
You got to go to OnlyFans for that.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's pretty funny.
No, I think what I try to do is just take the fetish nature out of being trans. And it's like, I'm just a person like anyone else trying to work a professional job. And so that's really been my message, is to just be normal.
Oh, yeah, it's a good message. Okay, so before the show went live, I mentioned there was something I wanted to talk about tonight, because I read part of an article that kind of disturbed me. It was about, and we've discussed previously on the Breakfast Club about the sort of prison industrial complex and so on. And I knew that it was happening, that there were prisoners being put to work for next to no money. But I didn't actually know how close to zero that next to no money actually can be for some of these prisoners. And I also didn't know that a lot of companies that I consume from are involved in this practice. And I just wanted to go over some of them real quickly, which some of these companies that I'm talking about, which is that's not the one. Here we go. So IBM, Boeing, Motorola, Microsoft, AT&T Wireless, Texas Instrument, Dell, Compaq, Honeywell, Hewlett-Packard, Nortel, Lucent, 3Com, Intel, Northern Telecom, TWA, Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, Starbucks, and it goes on. And I don't know. I think the only thing I can do now that I know this is not consume from those companies, but that's going to be particularly difficult for me when it comes to Boeing. Do you know what I mean? Because I have relatives across the sea that I want to go and see at some point, when COVID's no longer on fire.
Get a boat.
Can you name those? I know this is probably tedious. Can you name those companies again?
Yeah, I don't mind. So a lot of the ones that I've named here are tech companies, but I also named at the end, there's Starbucks, Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's, IBM, Boeing, Motorola, Microsoft, AT&T, Texas Instrument, Dell, Compaq, Honeywell, Hewlett-Packard, Nortel, Lucent Technologies, 3Com, Intel, Northern Telecom, and TWA.
Hold on.
Oh, Intel. Yeah. that makes it kind of, some of those make it kind of hard, doesn't it?
Right. That's my point. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, this is the capitalist trap writ large, in a much more micro way, though, because the whole thing is our capitalist system depends on exploitation all around the world. We just don't see it because it's happening over there, not here. But this is happening here. And it's not just that it's happening here, which is why it concerns me and makes it wrong to me. It's also because these are prisoners who are basically being paid literally next to nothing. Like I wrote in the article, some are being paid like 12 cents an hour. You know what I mean?
So you know the slave labor laws, like they explicitly exclude prisoners in them, right? Prisoners and waitresses. They're specifically excluded from minimum wage laws.
Right.
For the purpose of enslaving them.
You know, it surprises me that there hasn't been more of an issue of that made in recent years about waitresses.
I agree.
About people who receive tips. I don't know how in the world is this still even going on right now? It seems crazy to me. I mean, what is it? What is the minimum? What is the minimum for what they're able to get to when they do have tips? Is it $2 something an hour or some shit? It's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I actually like and believe in a tipping culture. Having lived in the UK for 30 years where they don't really typically tip and seen the difference in the level of service, I'll pay for my extra little bit if that helps the service and it also helps people survive. But I object to people not being paid a living wage before I tip them. That's outrageous. You know, I shouldn't have to tip
in
so they can make minimum wage. Huh?
I try to tip in cash too. That way it's not taxed and it's just theirs.
Yeah, and it doesn't take any time for them to get it. It's right there right away. If they do it on the card or whatever, sometimes it could take I don't know, who knows, maybe it might even take up to a month for them to actually receive it. So
right, I wouldn't know. Yeah, but you're right. They might not. They might wait till they get it all in one paycheck or whatever.
If they do it on the card, they could also have one of those unscrupulous bosses that dips into the tips of waitresses.
Sometimes it's pooled and shared among the kitchen staff and everything.
Well, a few years ago in London, a lot of restaurants in London were putting automatic 12.5% service charge onto people's bills. And unless you actually read the whole bill, you might not even think of it. You might just look at the number at the end and pay it and not really realize that you paid a tip. And it came to pass that like 85% or something like that of all these restaurants were not passing that service charge on to their staff. They were just basically keeping the money. The restaurant was keeping the money that we were supposedly giving the staff as a tip. So, yeah, that's that got made illegal once it was found out that it was so widespread.
But back to the prisons, you know, because that is really a huge issue. Because I remember it being kind of an old issue too. Didn't they used to make license plates for, you know, pennies on the dollar just to have some spending money in prison? So is it still like that?
When I was a kid, all license plates were made by prisoners, I thought. Yeah. I don't know if they still are or not. I'm not sure.
Here in Colorado, there are prison work gangs that they can get on that work farms. And these co-op farm communities that are around the area where the prisons are, they actually plan their crops around when they're going to be able to have the prisoners on their field.
Wow.
And the prisoners fight for the chance to get on these teams because they make a little bit better money than they could, you know, doing any little jobs inside the prison. And the farmers set up things like chicken lunches and, you know, send them back with some of the crops so that they can be used in the prison food. But it's an entire ecosystem of work based around the fact that there's a whole bunch of prisoners down in the Canyon City area.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it, and I could be wrong because I'm just one guy with an opinion, but the way I look at it, there's like so many different facets to this. There's the problem with how people get into prison in the first place, because there's an awful lot of unnecessary laws which make people go to prison. And, so there's that angle of it. But there's also this whole thing about in the Constitution, I can't remember if it's the 14th Amendment, I think it might be, that says that, slavery is illegal except for people who are incarcerated. So, we would have to, in order to stop this completely, we would have to change that amendment in the Constitution, because that's the amendment that, thank you, Green Machine, is the 13th. That's the amendment that enables it. And, but we also have to stop the problem that we have these, prisons that are privatized and, which encourages people to go to prison and stuff. And then they turn around with these privatized prisons and sell this labor, because we're only paying the prisoners like 12 or 14 cents an hour or whatever. But you can believe the people running those prisoners are getting some cream off the top. Definitely.
And you can either have a system that rehabilitates the prisoner and makes them a good citizen, or you can have a punishment system that just, and when you have an incentive system to keep that prisoner there, because it's a moneymaker for whoever owns the prison, it doesn't encourage anybody to get rehabilitated or become good citizens again.
That's a very valid point, because rehabilitation is something that they don't even really put a lot of concentration on. Yeah, Joanna Bell, that's a really good point. I'll get that.
We have a lot of people in prison just for weed use still.
Yeah, and especially when, like, I can't remember what the actual number is right now, but I think it's like 35 states have legal weed in one form or another, and every election cycle there adds to that number. And I know there's probably about a dozen states right now that have it legally for recreational use. And so it just makes a mockery of every single person being in jail for a non-violent drug offense. Marijuana offense, I suppose, in this particular case. But yeah.
Well, I mean, even it's just the entire war on drugs is messed up. Just to begin with, I mean, if you don't have the right to put something that you want into your own body, I mean, what rights do you really have?
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, it's like saying that. I think it's weird that, and maybe people will disagree with me here, but I think it's weird that it's illegal to try to commit suicide. Now, I'm not pro-suicide. I'm not saying, people should commit suicide, but if someone tries, it shouldn't be like a criminal offense,
Pick a person when they're already dead.
Yeah.
No, I have real strong feelings about that. I mean, I think the only person who has the right to take my life is me, but I don't ever really consider suicide a valid option unless I was old and infirm and there was no one to look after me, in which case I might consider it. But, I would have to be really, 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 really infirm,
I was pretty close a little over a year ago. So it was the closest I'd ever been in my life. But my things have changed and turned around. And I certainly want to be there again. But I've noticed too, like, a lot of people don't like to talk about it. They get uncomfortable talking about suicide, and there's a whole stigma about it. And I don't think that should be there. I think it should be acceptable to talk about it, and it is your right to take your own life. But people also need some help to get out of that, to recover from that, to have friends and stuff.
Man, there was some place in the Netherlands? I can't remember. There's a place where they've made these suicide pods, literally, that people can go to, and I just wish I could remember where it's at.
It sounds like Futurama.
Oh, and they look all futuristic as well. So, I'm just trying to remember where it was.
What actually happens in the pod?
I'm not sure. I didn't look too much into the story. I just saw the headline over and over again. So,
Because I have all sorts of dark ideas about that. I mean, maybe you just like get into this like pod that's just barely bigger than you, and it's like a big, long, plastic jelly bean, and you close it, and it latches airtight, and you just suffocate to death. And oh dear, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, I suddenly think of the suicide room in Barbarella. If you've ever seen the movie Barbarella,
I haven't seen that movie for so long, I can't remember anything about it.
Green Machine gets it.
No, but I mean, seriously though, what do you think? Do you think like if euthanasia was legal,
It
and
is in some
decided-
Northern European countries. I mean, assisted suicide for the elderly or infirm, they can pay somebody to help them give the final shot or whatever.
Sure, and I think there's all sorts of arguments for and against that. I come down on the for side of it personally. I think if you're of sound mind, frankly, I don't even think you need to be like debilitated to the point where your life is like unlivable. If you just decide, you know what, I think I want to go out on a good day, and today's that day, I think you have that right. I don't think it's a very smart thing to do.
We do it for our dogs, right? I mean, when it's time to put them down, you give them a good last day, and they don't even know it's coming.
Right. Well, I don't know.
I mean, as long as we wouldn't become a society that encourages people to commit suicide. I mean, that would be kind of the danger of if because I mean, there are people who are just depressed for a period of time, and that may pass. Maybe medications could help. Maybe counseling could help. But there are people that are just depressed for a period of time who might actually commit suicide unless they were convinced by society otherwise. So there is that danger.
I have people in my life that applies to. So yeah.
That's a very good point. Very good point. I really like that you made that point.
I think we already have a society where people are convinced that this life isn't real, and so there's no reason to be here needlessly. And when we have that, it's so much easier to convince them to go into occupations that they might, otherwise not have gone into, because giving up their life for America or freedom, it's seen as a good thing that's going to get them into heaven. They might not otherwise have made that career choice if they didn't, think that this life is worth living because, this is all we actually know we have.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have people in my life who've attempted suicide and then obviously came out the other side, and that's 40 years ago, and they're fine and have had a lovely life. So I don't take it lightly, and I'm not really flippant about it, although it may come across that way. But I've given this an awful lot of thought over my lifetime about because I mean, just philosophically, friends. I mean, answer me this. Do you believe that your life is your own, or do you owe at least a portion of yourself to the people that care about you? Right? Because when it comes to suicide, it's the most selfish thing you could possibly do. For whatever reason, it's the most selfish thing you could possibly do. And guaranteed, unless you have nobody that cares about you, you're going to hurt people. Right?
Yeah.
So
there
I know
some people that are down to nobody left caring about them. I know, and I reach out to as many as I can, but it is a sad situation to get to where that's it,
Yeah. Well, back in the day when I was a radio DJ in Santa Rosa, I actually talked a girl out of killing herself because she called me up and she wanted me to play a Pink Floyd song for her. And I can't remember, probably Comfortably Numb. And I asked her why she wanted me to play it. And then she told me she was going to kill herself. And I'm like, well, now you guaranteed I'm not going to play it. And I kept her on the phone for like an hour. And this poor girl, she's like 17 years old. And what had happened to her was like 2 days before, she was all drunk in the mall. And she called her mom and said, Mom, I need you to come and pick me up because I'm drunk. And her mom said, I can't come and get you because I'm drunk too. Okay. Right. And she said, come and get me. So her mom came and then died on the way there in a car wreck.
Oh God.
So she was absolutely like beside herself. And And I talked to her for a long time and basically talked her out of it. And I'm still to this day in my treasure chest, I have a letter thanking me from her for that. So that you know, so it's like suicide matters to me, but at the same time, I really believe that this idea, as Kazum mentioned, about how it's illegal to attempt, you know, so if you attempt it and fail, you're going to jail. That just seems really, really.
So it's also one of those laws that they don't prosecute it, but they use it so that they can control people from a policing standpoint. It's like there's a camping ban in Colorado Springs. The first person to be actually prosecuted as a homeless person camping was pushing the issue for the Occupy movement. His name was Steve Bass, and he was arrested in 2014 for intentionally setting up a tent so that he would get arrested. Like every chance, they did not want to actually prosecute the law. They didn't want it challenged at all. What they wanted was to be able to get homeless people in the back of their car so that they could drive them to a shelter and have the law be on their side.
The thing is they can still do that though.
Well, they were using that law as the pretense.
The problem though is that there have been cases where someone, you know, was trying to, you know, suicidal, and the police show up and end up killing the suicide. And I'm not talking about suicide by cop. It wasn't a case of where they run at the cop with a knife so that they'll get shot. Well, literally because the cops, because their propensity is to go hands on when people aren't complying, and that resulted in the deaths of people. So I really think, I mean, to me, the way I look at it is, okay, if someone wants to kill themselves, I think we should do everything in our power to help them if they are helpable. That said, you and your life and your body are the only thing that you will ever own your entire life for sure. It's the only thing you're going to have with you for your entire life for sure. You don't know about people, about any goods, anything like that. So I think ultimately, again, as part of body sovereignty, I understand that someone can reach a point where their life is so loathsome to them that it is actually a rational decision. Like there was very famously a few years ago, that woman that had she had
Terry Schiavo.
No, not that one. There was somebody who had a terminal illness, and Terry Schiavo was brain dead. That was the argument over unplugging her. But this woman when she was still of sound mind but deteriorating body, and she said, "I've got this thing. I'm going to die within the next 2 years. It's untreatable and incurable, and I do not want to suffer the pain of that it's going to inflict upon me. And so now, while the pain is still relatively manageable, I'm going to say goodbye." And she had a party. All of her friends came, and then at the end of the party, she drank, you know, a cocktail of some stuff, and it took her out, and they were all there with her, holding her. And I'm like, and people, you know, made a big deal. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's you know, if my life ever gets that loathsome, that's what I want. I want to be with people I care about and to say goodbye and let them know that I'm not doing this because I don't love them or I don't trust them or whatever, that this is my own decision, and that this is, you know, life has become intolerable to me, and that's where I want to go. So I mean, see, I guess part of the problem is the word selfish, is that I guess technically it's selfish, but I don't think selfish is necessarily always bad. It has a negative connotation, but it just literally means you're focused on yourself. And
Sure.
Now, I will say there are some extenuating circumstances. Like a friend of mine, her sister killed herself and left 2 children behind. You know, and she was basically doing it to get back at her soon-to-be ex-husband. She was basically mad at her husband for divorcing her, and so she was going to like get back at him. And of course, she didn't think at all about what that was going to do to her young children. You know, and certainly she was survivable. She was literally trying to hurt him and didn't give a fuck about her children, apparently. So that I would say is selfish in a negative way.
I just I'm gonna have to leave, guys, and I just want to thank everybody for having me on your show, and it's been a very good pleasure.
Thanks for hanging out, Nikki. You're always welcome.
Yeah, great meeting you.
I think it was great that you pointed out that selfishness has this negative connotation that we're used to, but self-care is something that is very neglected
Yeah, I agree.
People sometimes feel selfish when they're trying to deal with their issues. Sometimes men don't ask for help because they feel like they'd be being selfish if they asked for help.
Right.
Rather part of toxic masculinity,
Right. And like I said, I and for whatever the reason, and certainly, like I said, if someone's in great pain, whatever the cause of the pain, if we can eliminate or reduce their pain with them still being alive, we should try to do that. Where it reaches the end of the road where no measures that are available and they say, look, I just want out, they should be allowed to do that with dignity.
And that does happen. It's just not official. I mean, it does happen like 35, 36 years ago when my uncle died. My uncle had a brain tumor and he deteriorated really fast. And long story short, he gathered his best friends around and they had a nurse and they gave him some cocktail of something or other and off he went. And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't find this out for 15 years after he died. And then I'm like, you mean they did what? I was a little bit put out only because I wasn't told before that. You know what I mean? I wasn't necessarily disturbed by it, but because he was suffering and, definitely if you're suffering, I mean, we put a horse down if they break their leg, for Christ's sake, so I don't know. It just seems to me we were more compassionate when it comes to livestock and pets than we are when it comes to people who are suffering.
My step grandfather, he ended up dying 2 days after his 90th birthday. His last year of his life was so miserable that he prayed to God every morning to die, and he cursed God every evening that he didn't die. And what kind of existence is that? And so I was really upset and sad when he died, but I remember like the worst was going to the hospital, and because they tried to do everything, and he's 90 years old, and so he wasn't going to survive, and seeing the twisted look on his face of pain and fear, and because we had to go look at the body, and I'm like, no, this is awful, and I felt actually better for him that he was free of it.
Sure. Joe, you for sure be familiar with this. Has anybody else here familiar with the video from Metallica for the song called One?
Yeah. From the movie Johnny Got His Gun.
Yeah. Where that guy's tapping with his head, kill me, kill me, kill me, because he's blind, deaf, and has had his arms and legs blown off. That's that's a good example where euthanasia just seems kind of almost obvious, right? But it's certainly obvious if the person wants to die. If the person doesn't want to die, I guess you shouldn't kill them, of course. But no one has the right to judge what someone else's existence is worthy or not worthy, right?
Man, you make me think about the life of there's someone who is in one of the last iron lungs in existence because of I guess it was related to polio, and his entire life is spent just laying down in this machine, but he still ends up finding a way to contribute to society, to contribute or just to contribute something of himself to others, and it's amazing the resilience of some people when they're even in those sorts of conditions,
and see, that's the thing. Now, and that's great. I think that's awesome. What gets me, the people that are like completely against suicide, they'll look at a story like that and say, well, he found a way to make the most of his life, so therefore no one, everyone else has to do that. And I'm like, well, that's awesome that he's able to, but shit, some of us have a struggle, on the best of days, let alone if we were in that situation, so it's like, I would definitely, not condemn anybody, and I think about, I don't know if any of you knew Northern Vox Media. He was a YouTuber, a friend of mine, and a relationship that went haywire with another YouTuber, and he actually reached out to me like a couple weeks before, and I was trying to get him through it, and I woke up one morning and I checked Facebook and I saw the goodbye message on Facebook, and it was I called him and he was already gone. But I'm sad that it ended that way, because I think about, he was a young guy and he had all these plans and he had so much potential. And I feel sad that, he wasn't able to get through it so the rest of the world could see what he could do. But I never condemn him for trying to get out of that pain. Because again, from I talked to his father, and his father told me, he had, again, for him, it was somebody who, it was a struggle to get through every day. And so this was just, the straw that broke the camel's back.
An interesting thing, I think, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but how do we get acceptance of people, of euthanasia? How do we get acceptance of that without it bleeding into the element of society encouraging people to do such? What do we put in place to stop society from getting into that mode? If we allow one thing, how do we? I don't know.
I'm not sure there's an answer for that, because in other parts of the world where they do have this type of thing, I'm not sure if it's Sweden or Switzerland. It's one or the other. Where I think it's Sweden, where you can go, but you have to pass a certain number of things. It has to be your decision. It can't be you can't even have the impression that your family is trying to talk you into it. Perhaps because you're a burden to them, or perhaps because they want inheritance or something like that, for example. And this is the reason why it makes me nervous in America, because as much as I think it's a worthwhile thing and it should happen, I have witnessed people, both in my family and in other people's families, who, when someone with any amount of money has died, the family attacks each other like wolves, right? And so it makes me realize that if people are affluent and they're any kind of an inconvenience, or maybe their kids just don't like them that much and want to hurry up and die so we can hurry up and get our thing. I mean, that happens, look at Shakespeare, it's been happening forever, So I don't know how you structure the laws, because to answer your question, I don't know how you structure the law to where you can eliminate doubt, to where you can be absolutely sure that this is the person's genuine decision and that their family has not tried to persuade them. I mean,
well, and there's also the element of how bullying can happen online and make someone feel a certain way too, and there could be people that want to end their life because of I think of young people, very young people, impressionable people, who end up feeling this way over stuff that goes on Twitter. There are some of the meanest things I've ever seen have been on Twitter. So
yeah, I think the biggest part, really, like anything, is having some apparatus in place that puts scrutiny. So if someone says, "Hey, I want out," that we don't say flat out no, and we don't say, "Hey, come right this way." We say we investigate, and that's going to take a dedication of resources. So we have to have the political will, because not only to allow people to do it if that's what they want, but to put the system in place to protect the persons from outside influences. But and then on the flip side, there's some people are just against it because flat out, well, my religion says that you can't do it. Like, well, then fine, then don't. I won't make it's not forced. It's not forced euthanasia. It's selective.
My understanding of the way that the system works in Colorado, based on my working in it, is that if anyone tells me that they're feeling suicidal, it becomes a crisis situation where we get them into an emergency room, and they get held there until they get deemed to be not suicidal anymore, until they're safe, right? There is no, in that situation, there's no path to, okay, we're going to plan for you to do this the right way. It's if you are still suicidal, then you get more treatment, higher level of care. There's no send you home with something to safely do it. It never happens. That's not an option.
Which is wrong. I mean, but because it's all built around this notion that it's irrational to want to or actually end your own life. And it's like, well, it can be irrational, but it can be the most rational choice. For that matter,
how do you feel?
Sorry, go ahead.
How many people
No.
finding out they're probably going to go to jail for an extended period of time, or maybe the rest of their life? If I don't plan on committing any crimes, but if I was going to be, if I, just say I got framed and I'm going to be up for something that's going to put me in jail for the rest of my natural life, I'm going out. I'm taking myself out. I'm not going to sit in jail for, the rest of my life. I'm just not.
What are you going to say, Kazoom?
Well, perhaps it's not something I should say. Perhaps it's the alcohol speaking a little bit, but I was thinking about how, I guess in Canada, they're trying to make it so anything that dissuades someone very young from continuing their journey into being a transgender, anything that dissuades them from that is going to be labeled as conversion therapy. So the only thing that can be allowed is to push, like if someone has a bit of gender dysphoria, the only thing that they'll be allowed to get any professional input in is that which shoves them more towards.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
But there's a new measure or something that's coming through in Canada that it's confusing. I don't know enough about it, but I was just kind of
speaking. Raven can speak more on this than I can. But generally speaking, when someone gets counseling for this, they're not pushing you in either direction. They're trying to find out where you're at.
Well, yes, but I've been reading that there is some sort of legislation that's being pushed that would make it so anything that tilts someone in the direction of being cisgendered would be looked at as conversion therapy, will be labeled as conversion therapy.
So, okay. Aren't pushing you in any direction. That's all.
So here's one thing that I think is part of the confusion. If you never pop an estrogen pill or dress in any other way other than you did all your life, even if you never tell anybody, you're still trans. So somebody can never force you to be cis. It just isn't possible. You're not cis. You will never be cis. I will never be cisgender. It's not possible. So anybody who tries to persuade, even mildly, someone to not follow the path they're on, heading towards presenting or dressing or whatever it is, anybody who interferes with that is by definition trying to convert them.
Right.
So I mean, if they're saying if someone in a professional capacity is talking to them, telling them you're not really trans, well, they are trying to convert them.
Right. Plus the fact that for children, generally speaking, the treatment is usually puberty blockers, so that they can make the decision later. And that's the whole point of puberty blockers, so that they don't go. So there are very few children actually getting any kind of reassignment surgery. That generally doesn't happen. So it is a long. Long process. It's a long process.
I guess I somewhat think of myself as a child when I was really little, probably maybe 4 to 6 years old. There were many points where I said that I didn't necessarily say it verbally, but it's something that I felt. I wanted to be a girl. I did. I wanted to be a girl at a young age, and in some ways there were elements that were. I was sort of taught to have more female values, and not female, sorry, women values, because gender and sex are different things. But I think to myself, if things were the way they are now, I'm wondering if I would have been pushed towards being trans, even if, because like I said, because that's how I felt at that age.
That's not what you're doing. It's not either or. It isn't like either they dissuade you or persuade you. It's hands off. It's your decision to make. So they can't tell you not to. They can't push you not to, but they're not pushing you to either.
Right.
It's your path. You choose it.
See, I just want to know, wherever you read this, do you remember the source?
No.
Because you have to be very.
It was a whole bunch. It showed a whole bunch of headlines with different It was mainly a headline with a bunch of other sources for that same story below it. And so I didn't research it as much as I should have. The whole reason why I looked into it is because there are some YouTubers who are saying, "Oh, it's going to be all like this," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's probably not what it is." But
of course there are.
That's just it. People with biases are going to push it. They're going to misrepresent what it is.
Yeah.
Right. So like what Joe was saying about puberty blockers for kids, and that's one of the things that they're going to do for the child if they do decide that they're pursuing, that track, right, to transgender. Speaking as somebody who got serious about their transition at 50 years old, it is what it is. I look pretty good. I look pretty good. But that's luck. I mean, that's pure luck and genetics and everything else. I mean, most 50-year-old trans women who started to transition very late are not as fortunate. And passing, even though a lot of people talk, oh, no, passing isn't that, who cares about passing, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't have to pass. You shouldn't have to fulfill somebody else's idea of what a woman is and all that other stuff. And I agree with it and I understand it, but I also understand the real world. I understand that the easiest way to get through the world is to not stand out. And the best way to not stand out is to pass. So passing is important. So IMO, right? Passing is important. So if for the best results, you have to start transitioning younger than 18. And the only way to really do that is to get kids on puberty blockers if they want to transition. And then you keep them on the puberty blockers until they're old enough to take the estrogen or the testosterone, whichever it is, and they can pick it up from there. And if they decide that, wow, I was a stupid kid, I don't know what I was thinking, I don't want to transition, well, then you just take them off the puberty blockers and their natural course takes over. So that's usually what happens, and people get all upset about that. They also get all because what large men, it's not just the right wing, people all over the place, they believe that what you should be doing is talking kids out of it, telling them that they don't know what they're doing, that they're too young to know what they want, they're too young to know who they are, and they'll find all that stuff out later. And sometimes they're right. But not always, and no single person will have any other way to know what somebody else is feeling or thinking or in which direction they're growing more than they do.
I want to address Vegas's comment here. I think you're misinterpreting a lot of things, Vegas, because the whole idea is that by basically parents and teachers and everyone around the child accepting what the child says is basically is harm reduction. Say, okay, because if we tell the child, no, you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, we know that's harmful.
So gender affirming around children is really suicide prevention. It's lives.
Right. Exactly.
That's what it is. That's what that's about. So when we're about children, and we're talking about gender affirming, that's what you're doing. You're not telling kids that this is what they have to do. You're not pushing them in any direction. You're affirming their choice and letting them know that they are accepted as they present themselves or how they identify. It's not about, it's gender affirming, not gender confirming. Anyway.
Raven said exactly the right thing in layman's terms, but I'll put it to you the technical way so it gets deeper. We have a code of ethics that we follow as therapists, and in it, there are written down things that you absolutely shall or shall not do that are codified. But before that, there's a preamble that lists values, and one of the primary values that we have to follow is autonomy, that you get to choose for yourself. Autonomy is what,
Oh,
like, along with beneficence, like do no harm. Autonomy is something that we have to absolutely follow for people. And so if they come wanting to present in a certain way, we are affirming of that. We say, if you want to do it, go for it. We try to help you out with that. We
Right.
don't try to change your mind at all. And if you were to be coming from this point of bias, like some therapists in this world are from that biased perspective, or maybe they were growing up in a very militant Christian church, and they only wanted to be a therapist to their church members. If you ever come across that kind of therapist, they would have a very big internal bias towards not wanting to do that part of their job.
So
Find
sorry.
a different therapist.
There was a pause, so I jumped in. Sorry, Mike.
Right.
So I actually, in order to get this far, I had to go to a psychotherapist. Mike helped me find my therapist, and my therapist is a great person. They're they're pretty cool, and their pronouns are they and their, which is cool. And they specialize in transgender issues, LGBT issues, and sex worker issues. And I was just like, "Oh, you're the perfect one for me."
I've been all of those.
I ran the gamut. So anyway, so when I first started to see them, they referred to me as they. And by the time I got my letter, I was she. And it was more of a my perspective is they weren't putting any weight on the he or the she. They were just talking to me as a person, and it was a generic they. And I filled in the holes as we spoke, and they accepted it. They just accepted it as that's what it is. And I'm really glad that that's the way that it went. Billy is, they're cool. They're pretty cool.
I mean, the thing is, what gets me there's so many like just ridiculous like fears about stuff, and I get like people don't understand it. It's still for the public, it's still relatively new, but they basically come up with all these fears of things that don't or can't happen because that's not the way the system works. Like one of the things, the whole thing about puberty blockers. I got in an argument with somebody a couple months ago, and they were flipping out about that. Like, oh, we don't know what it does to children. I'm like, gymnastics kids have been taking them since the early '80s, and no one said dick about that. No one's complained about, oh, what about? Or no one's been, there's no panic about what's happening to young girls who or young gymnasts who take puberty blockers.
It's funny is what it does is right in the name.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of people are ignorant about what you just said at all. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that there was
the thing is, though, when you bring it to their attention, though, they still like, oh, well, we don't know. Like, yes, we fucking know. We got 40 years of data, and then they talk about the numbers. I'm like, there's more kids in gymnastics than there are trans people.
So, like when somebody goes to talk to like a therapist, or anytime trans issues come up, even if it's somebody who is in the LGBT world, even heavily on the T, they see something with green hair, it immediately plays to their biases. It immediately eats away, or exposes their own ignorance or bias about certain kinds of people, and they immediately get turned off by it. So when you start talking about children and puberty blockers, even some trans people, will get themselves all worked up in a huff about it. And it's just like, these are just your own ignorances, your own biases, and you're just displaying them for the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. At least whatever concerns people have, they should base it off of what's actually going on and not going on, and as opposed to what they're concerned might or may not be going on. But this is the reason why I hate speculation. And like, I don't know, so many times, like sometimes I get annoyed with Suzanne because she'll be concerned about something, and she's speculating, and I'm like, but we don't have to speculate. Sometimes you have to speculate. Sometimes you don't have any information, and nobody has information. But when the information exists, you don't have to speculate. You can look at the fucking information and then remove the doubts or reinforce the doubts if the data shows that. But I hate it when people speculate based on fucking nothing. When they're just too lazy to go look up the information or too afraid to look up the information. Because that's another one too. People don't want to look at information that will disconfirm their bias. They're so invested in their bias that they don't want to look at evidence to the contrary. I remember it was a sardonic skeptic, Canadian douchebag, years ago. He did this video going off. He had gotten this job and he was making $16 an hour. Like he's king shit. And I'm like, dude, I made $16 an hour in the mid '90s, early '90s. And then he went off about, he had this whole big rant about how black people were worthless and none of us do anything of value. And I'm like, dude, I run a company. He's like, no, you don't. I'm like, I'll make a video and I'll provide evidence. And he goes, I won't watch it or care. So you don't want to be disconfirmed. You don't want any evidence to the contrary of your view. You want to hold that view. That's why I don't agree with people when they say you can't choose what you believe. Bullshit. You can basically purposely block out all evidence to the contrary because you want to hold that. Now, I think that's incredibly irrational because at some level, it's kind of like what I was saying during the Trump administration. When you're blocking all the evidence of climate change, means you think the evidence is actually there. You just don't want anyone to know about it. You're muted, Paul.
Yeah.
Sorry. To say that you can't choose what you believe is preposterous on its face. It's the opposite is true. Every belief is a choice. That's the point. You believe.
I don't know. I choose not to believe that.
Well.
Well, I mean, there are people like when it comes to religious belief. I mean, there are people that are raised from very, very early ages to believe a certain thing, and they don't have a choice in those beliefs. They were brought up that way. So I mean, yes, someone later in life can choose not to believe it, but there has to be something that really brings them out of it. Or I mean, because it's a painful idea to those people to not believe. So
I hear so. Oh, sorry. No, I agree. I hear all of that. All I'm just saying is that at some point you're choosing to go along with how you were raised, and at some point, some people choose not to go along with that. And some people, even people that are like putting themselves in peril by. I mean, it's not dangerous as such to say I'm an atheist in America, at least not where I live, but there are parts of the world where you can be killed for saying it.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the thing too. Like, okay, again, I grew up religious, and I grew up in a thankfully relatively diverse town. We actually had a very high Jewish population, even relative to New Jersey, which is one of the highest Jewish populations in the country. So yeah, I was raised Catholic, so I was taught to believe certain things. But we had Protestants, and we had Jews, and we even had some Hindus and a couple Muslims. I could have investigated. I didn't. But if I had investigated what they believe and why do they believe? I used to wonder sometimes why they didn't think the same things that I did. I never really looked into it. But if I had, then I would have gone, gee, well, why? I might have decided that their way was better. And basically, this is what I tried to explain to about the whole thing about faith. It's like you don't have faith in God. You have faith in the people who delivered the message to you that you currently follow. They said, "Oh, this is from God." I mean, even the idea that the Bible is the word of God. You took on faith from the person who told you that.
Right. Exactly.
You believed them because you trusted them.
Yeah. Kazum, I think you and me should take it upon ourselves to turn this group into pantheists.
We worship pans. Okay, well, I will bring out my my all clad. Yeah, pantheism never. I mean, like that one never really made sense to me. I mean, I was a deist for a while until I realized that deism makes even less sense than believing in a personal God. Because you think about it, the idea that some entity, some force, some being, whatever it is, made everything and then fucked off and didn't interfere, didn't intervene. And I was trying to have that conversation with a friend of mine who his girlfriend, she's a deist. He's atheist. She's a deist. And I'm like, yeah, but okay. It's like, well, does the creator of everything, does it have anything that wants us to know or to do? Is there a certain way to live or not way to live? And she said, well, yes, but it doesn't interact with us or tell us ever. No. Well, then how are we supposed to know? That doesn't make any sense. How can I know if I'm following? How do I know if I'm following the rules if I don't know what the fucking rules are?
Dude, there's totally rules. Haven't you read them books? There's rules.
You deists don't have any books.
So if somebody said to me that they believe that they're a deist, that they believe that there's a creator God that doesn't give a shit about us, that didn't create us at all, that we are just a natural byproduct of what that God did create. And there is no holy books, and they don't care what we think, and there's no consequences to believing in them or not believing in them. That God just kind of farted out our universe, and whatever happened, and then it fucked off along its way. Okay, I could be okay with that, because that to me is at least more plausible, and it doesn't matter. It's more plausible than anything else that's been put out there.
Oh,
Right?
Popter, yeah. I mean, Shannon's awesome, but I mean, I don't. Again, we had it wasn't. We stopped before it became an argument, but I just like, yeah, it just didn't make sense to me, like, because like you said, basically that deity is irrelevant because I'll never know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know what it wants me to do. So whether it's there or not, it basically is irrelevant for my life. She's like, well, don't you want to know? I'm like, not really. I mean, plus the fact that, like I said, if that being is there and doesn't interact with us, I literally have no mechanism to be able to know. So there's no point worrying about it.
So in the conversation I told you about earlier, where I was talking about somebody about free will, they brought up the Bible, and I'm like, well, first of all, the Bible isn't anything other than a claim. It's a claim, and it doesn't hold any weight as anything other than that. It just is what it is. I said, besides, think about it. The Abrahamic God is so incompetent that the only way that this God has chosen to communicate with its creation is to have men, flawed men, write a book that ends up in like thousands of different versions because nobody can agree on what it means. Well, what good is that communication then?
Right.
I said, that's a pretty bad God, no?
Yeah, no, like with the whole thing with Shanna, basically I came to the conclusion, like, you know what, Shanna's awesome. So, we're never going to agree on that thing, but it doesn't matter enough to really argue about it.
Yeah.
So, I guess my argument then would be that the programmer is, I've got it narrowed down to either Elon Musk or Tom Brady, right? Because just for, what it would be credible, like, do we really believe that Tom Brady won all those Super Bowls on his talent alone? It's kind of, Elon Musk seems like he's got the cheat code for this life. He's now like how many more billions than Jeff Bezos? Come on.
The cheat code was to be born to South African jewelers.
Yeah. So like it's one of those two. I can't really put my finger on. It might be both. You've never seen them both in the same place.
Yeah, I saw this really good. I saw this really good meme on Facebook. It's like when you say to somebody like, "Wow, you did so well," and it's like, no, it's really like, "Wow, you really had some good opportunities available to you." And just imagine if you had You know, like you're born to billionaires and you become a billionaire. Wow, you're real. How'd you do that? Yes, Chris and Shanna are incredibly awesome. Chris is one of my favorite people. Shanna's one of my favorite people. Um, and yeah, he's not doing so much online lately, but so his presence is on the internet sorely missed. But I talk to him all the time anyway, so it's not that big a deal for me. But
How many favorite people you got, Joe?
12.
12. Yeah, that's a good number. And
I'm
do they, and is one of them going to get 30 pieces of silver for selling you out?
Oh, I hope not.
Joe's got disciples. He was in our midst the entire time.
Don't be Patri, Espiritu Santo. But did you ever see the movie Johnny Dangerously? Oh, you never saw Johnny Dangerously? Oh my God, I'm surprised you haven't, Paul. So it's Michael.
What
Keaton.
Dangerously?
Johnny Dangerously.
No, definitely not.
It's Michael Keaton. He is playing a mobster, but he's kind of a good guy mobster, if you will. He's kind of like a nice mobster. And so at one point, they're trying to break one of his guys out of prison, and so he sends one of his other guys in. So the guy he's trying to break out is on death row. Actually, no, it's just Johnny Dangerous. He's on death row. So one of his guys comes in and he's got dressed as a priest, and he's supposed to be doing the last rites. But of course, he's not actually a priest, so he doesn't know Latin. So he's just using Latin sounding words. So he's like, I'm Dominus Ominous, Omnibus, Unus Bus. Yeah, Auntie Meridian, Uncle Meridian, all the little Meridians, and then while he's doing that, he's assembling. In the huge Bible he brought, there's like pieces for a Tommy gun, and he assembles that, and they escape from prison. But it's pretty funny. It's a great movie.
I might look it up.
Yeah, it's Michael Keaton, Hugh Fink, Alan Hale's in it, Joe Piscopo, Peter Boyle.
I remember Joe Piscopo. Whatever happened to Joe Piscopo?
He turned into a roid rager and a right winger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he actually ran for office here in New Jersey. He failed miserably.
He ran for governor.
It was weird because he was right wing, but he wasn't. At one point, he wasn't like stupid super right wing. But then Trump showed up.
Ooh.
Well, yeah. Then Trump showed up. Hey, speaking of which, man, I mean, it's looking like Trump might actually be on the ropes or be on his way to the ropes, which is really nice. But at the same time, it's just like we never prosecute politicians in America, really. So it's just there's a part of me which is just super dubious. But
well, he is about to be indicted in New York State, so that's going to happen.
Well, I hope it happens, in the next sort of 60 days or whatever, because the closer we get to the election, the more they'll cry, Assange is political, which is the only card they've got to play, I mean,
even if Trump doesn't end up being able to run in 2024, we're probably going to have DeSantis. So,
yeah, I mean, the one thing though is funny. I was watching a video from Bo, the Fifth Column today, and pointed out that like 40% of Republicans are not vaccinated, but only 7% of Democrats. And with the new variants and everything, and the death rate going back up, he's like, well, there's going to be probably 200,000 to 300,000 between now and the next election. There's going to be like a few 100,000 people die, and he's like, and that's not a great thing, but we know selectively it's going to be them and not us.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he said enough people are dying off that it's going to be changing the outcome of some elections.
So I think
surprise victories for Democrats.
I think Ron DeSantis is probably the only Republican out there that actually has the chance of really winning, unfortunately, because he's the only one that can pull off Trump. Nobody can do Trump but Trump, and Ron DeSantis does a pretty good Trump.
Ted Cruz gives it a try.
Ted, yeah, but
Gives it a try.
nobody takes him seriously, though. He only keeps winning because he's from Texas.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's it. If it didn't make they could just put like a fake mustache and glasses on a pile of shit where he's from, and that would win. I mean, it's it is what it is. But Ron DeSantis does Trump. He talks like him. He pulls it off in a way that's believable, and people respond to it. Most everyone else that tries it, they get laughed at. They don't. Nobody cares. All the people that Trump supports, all the ones that he endorses, they all lose. It doesn't matter if Trump endorses them. It doesn't matter if they get along with Trump. It doesn't matter if they like Trump. It doesn't matter if they're Republican. They're not Trump. And that's what the right wants. They want Trump. And the only thing that comes close is Ron DeSantis.
Yeah. I mean, I was just looking back. Cruz only won by 2.5%, which, considering that how red Texas is, and John Cornyn did much better than Cruz in the most recent election.
Well, that's right. But John Cornyn wasn't running against Beto O'Rourke. And at the time, I was like, why isn't Beto running this time? Because he has a better chance of beating Cornyn than he did of beating Cruz, right? Because anyway.
I don't know if he had a better chance.
But the thing is, it occurs to me that Beto wanted to run for governor. So in order to do that, he, needed to be, basically, he's been so active in Texas, in a lot of different fields, against voter suppression in terms of gun regulation and stuff like that. He's been super active. He's been all over the state in the interim since he lost the presidential bid, right? And that's all sort of resume stuff for trying to be governor.
Yeah, I mean the thing with the other thing too is, I mean, Cornyn is not as despised in Texas. I mean, Republicans don't even like Ted Cruz. It's just that he's there, and like Raven said, if Ted Cruz ran in a primary versus a pile of shit with some glass, some mustache and glasses, the pile of shit would probably win. Oh, I just thought of the irony in that case. No matter who won, the pile of shit would.
Do you think if the freeze out that happened when Ted Cruz sent his kids and the family to Cancun while everybody was dying in their houses in Texas in the freezing cold, do you think if that happened before the election, it might have that might have cost him the election if that happened before he ran against Beto, if that might have been enough to push Beto over?
I think it might have, yeah.
Because there's no way that Ted Cruz came out of that looking good. No. You know what I mean? And he deserves to be mocked for it. But no, I think the
thing is, nobody likes Ted Cruz. Even the people that vote for him, people in his district, and even his children. I mean, nobody likes Ted Cruz. I mean, it's kind of like a common knowledge thing that even his colleagues and stuff have been on TV saying nobody likes Ted Cruz. It's really a miracle that the guy keeps getting elected.
See, one thing, this is another downside of being on the left that's difficult, because, of course, we don't want to emulate the bad things that the right wing does. But if I were to engage in the kind of shit that they did, I would have kept calling him Rafael, because that's his name. Ted is his middle name. Or actually, it's Edward, but yeah, Rafael Edward Cruz.
Yeah, well, he can't go out there and put Raphael on his signs and on his buttons, because he would never win.
Exactly. That's why I kind of feel like, because of course that's what the Republicans tried to do with Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. They would emphasize the Hussein as if that was he has a Middle Eastern sounding name, therefore.
Yeah, I mean, and what's the big deal if he was Muslim anyway? Why should that make that much difference? But that's
Americans are fucking idiots, and particularly in the right wing, they don't know anything about Muslims or Islam or like I remember when the whole Ground Zero mosque thing was going on. I got in an argument with some people that I got along with who were generally more central, if not leftist, and so they were against the mosque, which wasn't a mosque, by the way, and it wasn't at Ground Zero either. But they were going off, and I said, well, these people are not in any way related to the ones you're talking about. And she's like, and there's one woman I knew, she was like, well, if because I said, well, would you have the same reaction if it was Christians at like a site where Christians did something bad? And she's like, well, that's different because there's all these different varieties of Christian. I'm like, do you not understand that there's a lot of different varieties of Muslim as well? And then she blocked me because she was angry that I embarrassed her because she was so fucking dumb that she didn't know that there's different that the Sunnis and Shia, and within those there's breakdowns, there's Wahhabis and all sorts of different things like that, and she didn't know. And so the fact that I exposed her for not knowing, she got upset about it, like, because again, Americans are fucking stupid.
I just wanted to a little tiny bit back to where we were a minute ago, because like 1/6 Commission this week had released a whole bunch of messages from various different people, journalists as well as politicians, to Mark Meadows during the attack. And I'm so glad that what used to be speculation here on the Breakfast Club has been basically shown to be obviously right. This conspiracy had a whole bunch of, this was a conspiracy. This didn't happen by accident. This was never there was never not an intention for the people to go to the Capitol and cause a problem, and the fact that the journalists at Fox were on their text messages to Mark Meadows, to me, just demonstrates openly that they knew that those were Trump people, and it had to end. And if there's not, there has to be some kind of criminal indictments coming down from this at very high levels, or there's no point in the commission, and there's also no hope for democracy. Because you can't try this and get away with it, right? There has to be serious consequences. As far as I'm concerned, these fuckers should be tarred and feathered and marched down the streets.
Hey, I should ask, just to play devil's advocate here a little bit. How much of a chance did they actually have in an actual insurrection? How much chance did they actually have?
They were 90 seconds away from catching Pence, so they came extremely close.
They were 90 seconds away from the House chamber as well. I mean, there were, when Pramila Jayapal and others were up in the gallery on their knees, that's when that girl got shot in the doorway. So they were still in the gallery when.
Yes, but did they have
shot? That's how close they were. If Ashley Babbitt shot when they got in there, Kazum, there would have been Congress people still in the fucking chamber. That's how close they were.
Did they have did the ones that were that close to Pence, did they have weapons that could have actually achieved the things that they wanted?
I don't need a weapon to kill somebody.
Well,
they
but
they brought a guillotine.
They also brought zip ties that were big enough to get around people's wrists. The great big long zip ties
on the lawn.
I mean, people.
Well, the guillotine, though. I mean, that's the guillotine thing. To be fair, that's not much different than you see in other countries. They'll have a it's a prop. Yeah, it's a prop. It's not a real deal. So
multiple cops died. So they to kill somebody, you get a mob of people beating on somebody long enough, and they will die.
Right.
Yeah. All you gotta do is use a flag.
In the Capitol where they were. You could have lifted him up and thrown him over the stairwell, and he would have fucking died.
And they did have weapons.
Yeah, they had weapons. They had ropes. So. I mean, this whole idea that it's so preposterous, and I hope that it gets put to bed finally and once and for all about this whole thing about how it was just a protest that went a bit too far, because there were people that came with mountaineering equipment to scale the Capitol.
Yeah, they were just tourists doing touristy things.
Yeah. They scaled Mount Everest. Now they're going to scale the Capitol, I guess. Right. I don't know. I think it's really interesting that the Republicans at the moment, as far as I've seen on TV, are keeping pretty stum about what's going on, because a lot of them know their necks are on the block right now, especially in the House of Representatives. Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you believe the kind of things that people like Tucker Carlson say, he's trying to push the notion that it's the 6th was a false flag operation
by people who supported Trump.
Yeah, but I mean, we know that he doesn't believe that he's just saying that. We know that the people at Fox were on the phone texting with Mark Meadows, Donald Trump's chief of staff, telling him, get Trump to stop this. These are his people. They will listen to him.
And people in Congress are doing the same thing too.
Yeah, everyone on Fox News who's talking about how it was a false flag or it was Antifa, they all know that that's not true. We have proof that they know that that's not true.
That's right. So for whatever they've said over the last, almost year, this gives truth to the lie that no, they absolutely knew whose people they were, what was happening, and they were like, oh my God, and this is what gets me. This is what. So here they are deep down. So Hannity, this as shitbaggy as he is, he knew that the president was attempting a self coup, and that this could destroy the republic. And yet he still stumps for the fucker. Like, what kind of degenerate? I get power and all that, but okay, God, fine, go with DeSantis or whatever the next person is. But to me, if you want to, get people to vote for Republicans, you have Republicans stand up and say, we can't abide this. We're going to stand up even against our own party. That's the integrity we have. That we're going to stand against the own president who we loved and we liked and all this kind of stuff. But he went too far, and we're going to turn him out because that's the American way, and that's what we're going to do. And that's why you should continue to follow us, because we have the integrity to do this, and we don't think the Democrats would stand up against their own guys this way. And they would win a lot of fucking votes that way.
Well, if they had the integrity to do that, that would be great. But I mean, the problem, as far as I can tell with that, is they're all in on it. They've always
look how they've treated Liz Cheney. I mean, they've really demonized Liz Cheney. They make her look out.
Yeah.
They even say, Republican in name only. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know what's hilarious about the text messages? One of the people texting Mark Meadows, begging him to get Trump to stop, was Don Jr.
I know, that's funny.
Don Jr. didn't even have a direct line to his father.
Well, he probably did, but his father probably wasn't picking up. Mm-hmm. He probably saw the caller ID and said, nah.
That's crazy.
What's the I'm looking at the guy's name up there. The guy in the wheelchair.
Is it Nathan? No,
No, I'm sorry. No, sorry. No, not the wheelchair. The guy missing an eye, Dan Crenshaw.
Oh, Crenshaw.
I don't know if you saw what Dan Crenshaw said a couple weeks ago. Now, he's a big pro-Trump guy, but he called out the Freedom Caucus, and he said there are grifters in our midst. And he said, look at the votes, who voted with Trump and who didn't. And he's like, you're not going to like this, but, Cheney and what's the guy for the
Adam Kinzinger.
Adam Kinzinger voted with Trump like 99% of the time, well above anybody in the Freedom Caucus. And so I was shocked to see that he was actually basically calling out that whole fucking Gozert and Taylor Greene and Boebert and the whole lot of them.
Yeah, the death squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Jim Jordan, he's definitely in hot water. McCarthy's in hot water. A few others in the House are definitely in hot water, and we're in uncharted territory when it comes to subpoenaing sitting members of Congress for an investigation, and they're going to claim that they don't have to do that, and it's going to be a mess, man. But the thing is, Trump keep claiming privilege and everything, and so does his people. But there can't possibly be, and any judge has to throw that kind of thing out, because it can't possibly be okay to have a privilege to conspire to overthrow the government. That can't be okay.
Right.
So no such privilege can ever be made to exist.
It's not just that. I mean, the claim is presidential privilege, executive privilege. He's not the president. There is no executive.
Yeah, sure. But I mean,
like a citizen.
How do we get people on the right to see January 6th as bad as it really was? Because there's a lot of people, they just don't want to believe that it was as bad as it was. They want to I'm just saying, I see it over and over again. People just trying to say, no, it wasn't really as bad as you're saying, because they didn't have they didn't really have that big of a chance of actually achieving their goals. And they also say that the majority of people there were just there as a protest against the way the election turned out. It's hard to get people on the right to actually see how bad this was.
If somebody shoots a gun and the bullet whizzes 3 inches past my ear, it's still attempted murder.
Right.
It's not okay because it missed.
So here's the thing. So if and when some of these Congress people are actually tried, right, charged and tried, some people might be like, wow, holy shit, this was something real. At least that's my hope.
Well, one of the things to me, I mean, I already knew even at the time that it was pretty horrendous, but what made it really stark for me was they did a side-by-side video thing of, time synced, and they showed that one cop who basically they were about to turn the corner and go up the stairs, or go down the stairs, and that's where Pence was, and he basically shouted something at them and got their attention, and he basically kited them to follow him, and he was risking getting beat to death, but he basically got them to chase him in the wrong direction. But they actually showed with the various cameras, like, yeah, here's Pence, and he goes down the stairs, and then like 12 seconds later, those people come out, and he's going, Pence is going down the stairs, and he basically stops them. He's like, blah, 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 and then they start coming.
Stalls them a little bit, yeah.
And it's like, holy fuck.
So, Green Machine, I disagree. Trump is very different than those Republicans because he's not a Republican. Trump is not a Republican. He is not a conservative. He doesn't have any conservative or Republican values.
He didn't have values.
He doesn't have values. He doesn't have any kind of a political center. He doesn't have a moral center. He doesn't have, he doesn't have any of that. He does and he says what people around him convince him to do or say. The last person that he spoke to is the most important person in the world because that's who he remembers.
Right. And
Trump
whatever he thinks will make him the most popular with the people he's concerned about being popular with. That's it.
Trump is terrible at choosing people to be around him. Just absolutely fucking terrible at choosing people to be around him.
So
even on his reality TV show, he wasn't that great at choosing the people around him. He's just bad at choosing people to surround himself with. He's been bad at it. He continues to be bad at it.
He pictured winning with Roger Stone because Roger Stone basically admitted recently that he got let out because he kept his mouth shut. And Roger Stone is one of the people that's implicated in some of these conversations that the 1-6 committee now knows about. Roger Stone is, and Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and all these people, Matt Gaetz, there's a whole bunch of them right now who were counting on the coup to work. And the fact that it didn't work means they have to make the next attempt work because the only way these fuckers are avoiding accountability is if they gain power.
You think people will attempt something like this again?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. No. I mean, you're kidding that you obviously not paying attention, kids. I'm sorry. But all these laws that they changed in multiple states to actually allow the legislature to throw out the ballots in a given state. This is part of their fucking plan.
Yeah, but that's different than literally that's you're saying that they're going to do things that could actually change the election. That's different than people coming in and doing a physical insurrection.
That's their fallback if the first efforts don't work.
I previously
part
asked
of a
how
multi-pronged
they
plan.
come to succeeding. The person that stood in their way, ironically, was Mike Pence. He could have made things a lot much worse if he didn't certify the election and he tried to make his position there be much more than it actually is.
Right.
It would have emboldened them all.
I mean, you think about it,
he would have been still dealing with the problem probably today.
Which proves, and I think I might have said this last week, but it proves that the people who thought that, well, if we impeach Trump and remove him from office, that Pence will be worse, are wrong. Because Pence had the chance to go along with the coup, and he chose not to.
Because
So right off the
Pence
bat,
is a
it makes him better than
Pence
Trump.
is a real politician. He's the real thing. Green Machine, right? I think a lot of Republicans are just better at pretending to have values. Well, no, I mean, there are Republican values. There's conservative values. There are things that party, the GOP, there are things that they hold dear. There's values, there's mindsets, there's, the Republican way, so to speak. Trump doesn't even know what any of that is. Like he doesn't follow it. He doesn't believe in it. It's not part of who he is as a person. But most of the people in the public square that are Republicans have at least some kind of there's less of them now in the Trump era because you got like people like Boebert and all that kind of shit. But there are actual, classical Republicans. Mitt Romney is one. So that's an actual thing.
I sort of disagree, but not really, because like Trump delivered for the super rich in a way that no previous president ever did with his tax cut, because that only really like 86% of the benefits benefited really people.
Well, I mean, Republicans in general want to try hard to do those types of tax cuts. So maybe you can say other Republicans haven't been able to achieve it, but it's not because they didn't want to.
Right. But I mean, it's not like that's not like a political guiding philosophy. I mean, the modern conservatism, any conservatism, I mean, that's a political philosophy. Trump doesn't have a political philosophy. He has, hey, I'm in a position to make myself money. And if millions of other people lose money, not my problem. If other people like me make money, well, that's good for them. But I don't care. I want to make money for me. And that's what he did.
One thing that I was just thinking of, because like Roger Stone was called for the committee and he pled the fifth. Here's one thing. If I was the committee, what I would do, I would grant him immunity. If you're granted immunity, you have to testify, and if you don't, you're in contempt. See, that's one of the things about immunity. If you get granted immunity, because the whole point about the fifth is you can't be compelled to say anything that could potentially put you in jeopardy. If you have immunity, the legal principle is if you have immunity, you must testify.
I have a question. I have a question about Mitt Romney voting majority of the time with Trump. How did he vote with Trump? When people say that, what do they mean exactly?
Well, voted for Republican bills and so forth.
Okay, but that's not voting. That's not voting with Trump. So people say, "Well, this person voted 90% of the time." Well, what does that mean? Trump never voted for any of that stuff. You're muted, Paul, and you look like you're saying something very important.
Yeah, if Trump signed the bill, then they voted with Trump.
But that's
the same way. If Biden passes Build Back Better because Joe Manchin gets on board with it and he finally passes Build Back Better, it's a Biden bill. So he voted with Biden.
It's meaningless. But that's meaningless because they're the president that signed the bill.
It's a statement of the obvious, yeah, but it's not meaningless. But it's a statement of the obvious.
Well, it's not like they voted with Trump. If Liz Cheney did not agree with something and didn't vote for a bill and it still passed, Do you know what I mean? It's not like she voted with. So it kind of doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not it passed. It wasn't like Trump voted for anything. It was the people around him told him, you need to sign this, so he did.
No, but Raven, it matters in that where they stand. In other words, it's an indication of where that person stands.
Right, but it makes more sense to say they voted for a bill that did this because Trump would sign anything he's told to sign.
Right,
Stand in the place where you live. Sorry.
Right, but the whole thing is that in also these Republican bills, Trump did stump for them. So clearly he claimed to be for them, whether he was or not. And again, it's just political shorthand.
Yeah, when I see somebody say though, like, hey, Mitt Romney voted a majority, that doesn't mean anything. It was actually Trump that voted with Romney by signing the bill. It wasn't really the other way around because there's no moral center or political center to Trump. He just does what he's told or did what he's told.
Paul, what do you think about my idea about giving Stone immunity?
Me, Well, I think Roger Stone is the wrong person to give immunity to. I think he's one of the people who deserves to go the fuck down. But
yeah, but the thing is if they can't compel him to testify.
I hear that. But I mean, there's other people that I think could give immunity to, that you could get Roger Stone with as well and bring him down as one of the titans. Really.
Okay.
Because like for example, I mean, to expand on what you said about immunity before, I mean, also when someone is granted immunity, it's done on the premise that they already know the fucking truth. So if you lie, they're going to know, and you are going the fuck down. So that's another reason you're compelled to tell the truth, because you know they've got the goods.
Right.
So you basically just have to confirm what they already know. And that's the whole function of immunity, is to let you do that without fear of your own prosecution. Great. But I mean, someone like Roger Stone, too high up to give immunity to, in my opinion. I would try with maybe someone like Kayleigh McEnany, because she's not in on the planning necessarily, but she knew everything that was going on in that freaking White House. She had to.
Fair enough.
You know? And I think someone like that would be someone you could offer immunity to, who could see the advantage of not being prosecuted because she's still young and has her whole career ahead of her.
Right. That makes sense. And what's really funny is Green Machine mistyped Romney, so it came out our money, which works in so many different frames of reference.
Right. So Joe Manchin's from West Virginia, and as far as I know, there are no major bodies of water in West Virginia. So why does he have a yacht?
Well, here's one thing I will say. I mean, obviously, I'm disgusted with where Manchin is doing, but one thing I will say, there is. I saw something he said recently that I can kind of begrudgingly say, okay, that's a valid point, because because of him, the 3.5 trillion program was pared down to 2.1 trillion. Now that's his fault. However, in order to make that work, because the people working on the bill didn't want to get rid of any of the priorities, so they had to scale them back. And in some cases, that meant making some of them temporary. So Manchin's point is, well, look, you got a smaller bag of money. Rather than do a bunch of half-ass things, why don't you prioritize and make a fewer number of things permanent and do them right? There's a certain logic to that.
Yeah, I agree.
I hate to say I agree with it, but I do. Because, I mean, it's going to end up hurting whoever the sitting administration is when the end of those things come. It's going to hurt them. Whoever's in office, it's going to hurt whoever it is. So if it's a Democrat, they're only going to set themselves up for failure later. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It makes more sense to have a smaller number of programs that you're going to, like, nail them permanently, or at least for a very long period of time. So...
Yeah, because the thing is, and I get the idea that people trying to do the shotgun approach is that, well, maybe we'll get to make them permanently later, but what if you don't? What if you don't? Then what? And this is why, like, again, I know certain progressives get angry about incrementalism. It's like, yeah, I would prefer to do the $3.5 trillion thing too, but we're not getting that. We're not getting that. We're not getting that. We're not getting that. So back in the real world where we're not getting it, what can we get? And if we can
I mean, I know I'm not the only person to make this point, but I mean, I just find it highly objectionable that basically two senators who represent, like, I don't know, 8 or 9 million people have this much power over the rest of the 330 million people. You know what I mean? It blows my mind. I mean, I understand that it needs to work that way. That's democracy, right? And a majority is a majority. When you have a very slim margin like we have in both houses, then you have to do some serious politicking.
So I wanted to say really quick to Vegas. I would say it's not so much agreeing with Manchin overall. I think the entire bill is in the shape it's in, and it's pretty piss poor because of Manchin, and he's a complete and total piece of shit. But because considering where it is right now, and what could potentially happen with it, it does make more sense to consolidate that money onto fewer things that are going to last longer.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with me. At the end of the day, I'm a pragmatist. Again, I wanted that $3.5 trillion. But again, thanks to him, we're not going to get that. So since we're not, I will go along with him because if it means getting some of those priorities taken care of.
I'm just really pissed at Joe Manchin in the first place, because when him and Bernie went into negotiations, Joe's number to start with was 2 trillion and Bernie's was 6 trillion, and they negotiated the 3.5 trillion. And that was the frickin' compromise in the beginning. So it's just really annoying that they then turn that around to the top number from which to negotiate down. It's just really aggravating.
Yeah.
Kazum, did you want to say something before I start going? It looked like you were going to say something before. No? Okay. So, yeah. That's one of the reasons why I think Manchin is a piece of shit, because he doesn't negotiate in good faith. He's fucking over his own party. And, 6, we can't do that, so let's compromise into 3. Okay, what 3? Oh, but we can't do 3. Let's compromise it down. No, I'm sorry. You've already compromised. You won. Let it be. He's a sore winner.
Well,
yeah, right. That's a good way to put it.
So he and of course he cares about re-election, but it's like, dude, you're an old dude, and you're not up for election again for another 4 years. So, because you got reelected in 2018, so no one in Virginia is going to remember. And if those programs are popular and work in West Virginia, you're going to get reelected again. So, but yeah, it's like he's a patrician douchebag. Unfortunately, he's a patrician douchebag we need at the moment.
You know, I'm wondering what. It's just a random thought. What are the people who are very young right now? What are they going to think of old people running everything anymore? I mean, like 50 years from now, like, do you imagine that we're going to be focused still so much on old men running everything?
So based on where we are right now, I don't see anything 50 years from now being anything that resembles anything that we know.
I disagree. I mean, basically, what I said before, that cynical young people will continue to fuck themselves over. So in the same way that right-wing people vote against their own best interests, young people don't significantly vote in their interest. They just don't vote. And so until that changes, until young people recognize their power and say, hey, you know what? Especially millennials and now Zoomers outnumber boomers and the silent generation significantly. So, hey, if we get off our asses and outvote these old motherfuckers, we could get what we want. But until they recognize that power and stop whining about it, they're going to continue to suffer losses. And if they view every loss as
I don't think
they have such a negative attitude towards older people, though, more than I can remember in the past. When I was young, I don't remember people having this negative an attitude about older people, and so that's the element I'm grasping onto here. Do you think that may carry on into the future?
No.
I read an interesting tweet the other day, which kind of relates to that, Kazum. It said that people becoming more conservative as they get older only really worked for the generations that got more wealthy as they got older. Right. But now there's a generation facing less wealth as they get older. And so they're probably not becoming more conservative as a result.
Well, and that's true. And that's the reason why the Gen X, we have gotten more conservative than we did when we were younger, but nowhere near at the rate that the boomers did. And nowhere near at the rate that
we're actually the first generation, generationally, that didn't do as well as the generation before us. Generation was the first one. So we were the first losers. So every time millennials complain about it, I'm like, oh, shut up.
Well, that's my attitude, because I'm sympathetic to what they're angry about, but I get angry when they act like they're the first ones that happened to. I'm like, when Bill Clinton.
I actually saw some millennials do that. Actually, say that we're the first one. No, no,
you're not. And especially when they talk about the student loans. I'm like, I'm 53. I paid my student loans off at 47. So don't tell me that I don't know what it's like, because I was still paying them up until a few years ago.
Though I mean, tuitions though have skyrocketed though. I mean, compared to what they used to be. So you got to take that into consideration. So right, just to be fair,
again, I had crushing student loan debt too.
So I don't think that we'll be voting. When you talk about like 50, I don't think we'll be voting in 50 years. I don't think we're going to have free elections in 50 years. I wonder if this country will exist in 50 years.
What do you think will replace free elections in 50 years?
I don't know, dictatorship.
Well, I mean, a dictatorship might be coming in the next 5 years, friends. I mean, that's just the way things might happen. I mean, it seems to me that the Republicans are stacking the deck in a number of different ways, which I don't have to go on about. And the fact is that our systems don't seem to be able to stop them from doing that. And that's really aggravating to me, because I don't understand, if there is a way to stop them from doing it, why isn't it happening?
Well, see, the part of the problem is the way that the only way to stop it is either change the law or to sue. The problem is, to sue, you have to have standing, and have standing, usually you have to have been injured, or there has to be such an obvious case of injury in advance that you can sue. So very often you don't have standing to do something until after the bad shit's already happened.
Right. And I understand the reasons for that. But at the same time, I mean, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And, right. we really need to stomp on this shit before it gets any worse.
Now, to what you were saying before, though, kids, about younger people, I think I want to clarify what I said. I think young people will continue to have disdain for the elderly in 50 years from now, but I'm not convinced. I don't have any confidence that young people are going to do anything about it other than complain.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, complaining is kind of like normal.
See, I don't mind the complaining if that's not the only thing you do. But if all you do is complain, shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, I was raised this thing. You haven't got something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So yeah.
And this is why I've been so quiet this show.
But I mean, the thing is, seriously, I mean, my whole life, I mean, I voted as soon as I possibly could, and I saw things I didn't like, and I wanted them changed, and I voted the best I could to try to make those things change. Wasn't successful a lot of the times, but I went out there and did my part. And I also went further. I didn't just vote. I have contacted my representatives. I have written and called and stuff like that. I've never actually made an appointment to actually sit down with one. But and unfortunately, I thought about it a lot lately. But unfortunately, with COVID, that's not really a practical thing. Mm-hmm. But as soon as that becomes practical again, I probably will.
So with the way things are going right now, with the legislation and that kind of stuff that's being put in place by the Republican Party, I can absolutely see within 50 years, the United States becoming a democracy in the same way that North Korea or Russia is,
right.
Where there's an actual election, but it doesn't mean anything.
That's what the other side is arguing about the last election, and that's what pisses me off. You know what I mean? And everybody sitting here knows it's a lie, so I don't have to sell that. But the fact is that with the manipulation of information these days, they've managed to propagate this bullshit to the point where it has a real chance of overtaking. And I just wanted to reference what Doug Zilla said there about being more positive. And Doug Zilla doubts dictatorship's coming, but could see America splitting into separate nations with how divided things are. There's no way that can look where people don't die. I mean, every time you tried to split a population that was previously woven together, there's always conflict,
Yeah. Yeah, but do you think there's a possibility of what he said?
I definitely think I personally think there's a greater possibility of dictatorship in America than there ever was in my lifetime, and I never thought I would see this day where I even had to worry about it. You know what I mean? It's extremely depressing to me. But if the shenanigans that the Republicans have put into place, if they go full force with it, I mean, we've seen with the stuff that the January 6th committee has released this week, that they were literally plotting to just ignore the rules and overthrow the government. People within the government were doing that.
Rick Perry, the day after the election, before all the votes had been counted, had sent a message to Mark Meadows saying, "This is how we can steal the election." He didn't use those exact words, but basically saying that this is what we need to do.
And the thing is, literally, when Trump said to Mike Pence, you got to do this. And Mike Pence, sorry, Mr. President, I don't have the power to do that. And Trump said, you don't need to have the power. Just do it and leave the rest to me. That's what Trump said to Mike Pence. And you know what? The worst part is Trump is right. If Mike Pence said, no, I'm throwing that out, we don't recognize those electors, it would have been constitutional chaos, and we probably would have had a delayed inauguration if there was an inauguration at all. You know what I mean? It would have been awful, even if the coup didn't get as close to working and they just all protested outside and Pence went ahead and did what Trump wanted him to do. That's another way that we were that close to going. If Pence wasn't so afraid that it wasn't going to work, if he was as sure it would work as everybody else was, it would have worked.
It would have worked, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, and that's why when people are being Pollyanna, like I was watching, I'm on a Wednesday night broadcast now with Nicholas Suter, and he's been in the comments a few times, so there was another show Thursday, and he was interviewing Seth Andrews, and the whole topic was trying to improve the discussion. And it's like, well, but we have to get along with these people. We have to talk to them. And it's like, it was so Pollyanna. I'm like, we're so fucking far beyond that. I wanted to like reach through the internet and grab Seth by the throat. Like, these are people willing to usurp democracy and willing and want to destroy at least some of us. So like, actually, there's at least 3 of us on this panel that they would be more than happy to out and out destroy. And like, no, I'm not fucking talking to them. There's nothing like I've tried. You can't have a conversation with somebody who doesn't have a functioning grasp of reality.
When you told me about that, because I didn't see it, you told me about it. I had mentioned it to Peach, and she said, "Seth said that." I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, and that's why I said, it's easy to be cavalier because he said yes. He was like, "Oh well, of course we got to protect people's rights." I'm like, it's easy to be cavalier about rights that when your rights are not in jeopardy. So it's like, no, Seth, I'm not gonna like, it's like what we talked about before, the old joke of like, well, maybe, okay, what if you only destroyed half of us? That's not the compromise. The compromise
respectability politics. That's what he's advocating is respectability politics, and that's one thing that history has shown us does not work.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I and look, there's times when it's necessary to do that. I acknowledge, but not basically,
it's not a strategy.
It's not how you deal with fundamentalists. He said that's how you deal with the people in between that can be reached. I'm all for talking to the people. There are people who can be reached, and there are people who maybe or somewhere in between me and them that may be able to reach them. But it's not going to be me.
Kizum broke the seal. That's why he keeps going. He keeps he broke the seal. You're not supposed to break the seal, man. Because that's it. Then you're peeing every 5 minutes.
Listen, friends, I got to split in a minute. Joe, do you want to carry on the show?
Yeah, I can hang up for a bit.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, but I just wanted to say about this this whole 1-6 committee. I mean, I hope that after the holiday period comes and goes, they put the pedal to the metal with this stuff because, time is of the essence. Now that the people in Congress know that their neck is on the block, they're going to be scrambling, and whatever phase next is going to come sooner and harder than it was going to come before because these people are going to know that their chance to get away with it is dwindling.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'm just hoping that that Bo is right and that COVID may be the biggest ally of democracy we have.
Well, I mean, I don't want anyone to die of COVID or anything else unnecessarily, but I hear you. I don't want these people to get away with their voter suppression. That's for sure. And I don't know if Congress got off their ass and passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That would be a step in the right direction.
I don't want to wish it on anybody, but I'm at the point where if that's what it takes, because again, it's self-inflicted. It's not like I'm going out and rounding up people. But if they're going to self-immolate, at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't even argue with them anymore. I'm like, if you want to die, go right ahead. Do it.
Yeah. Well, much love, y'all. That's all I got to say. And I will see you all again next week. Thanks for showing up. And thank you, everybody in the chat.
Coach, well, Paul, a reminder, next Saturday is Christmas, which I'm fine. I mean, Christmas is
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I won't be doing next Saturday. I won't. But if you want to do it, Joe, you can do it. Do you want to set the show up, or do you want me to set it up and send you the link?
I can set it up. I got ups.
All right. Yeah, that's fine then. Okay, then. Listen, peace and joy, my friends. Merry Christmas.
Oh, before you go, I just want to make sure everybody knows this. If you've watched any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and you like any of them, go see the Spider-Man movie. I saw it yesterday.
I want to see it so bad.
It met. There was a lot of hype to the movie and a lot of rumors. It met him. It ticked all the boxes.
I saw a commercial for it on TV that said it was the best Marvel movie of all time, and I'm like, that's a bold fucking statement.
I would say it might be. I would definitely put it in the top 5. Suzanne and I were talking about it earlier. So
Okay. Now I need to know the other 4.
Okay, Infinity War, Endgame, Black Panther, and plus Spider-Man. And I'm not sure about the 5th. It would either be the first Iron Man.
It'll be Civil War or the Winter Soldier, surely.
Yeah, I could put. Well, that last position could either be Civil War, Winter Soldier, or the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much my list too.
Or Thor Ragnarok.
I love Thor Ragnarok, but it was a bit of a farce, but I quite liked it. I've watched it more than I think all the other movies combined, really, because maybe not combined, but I mean, I just find it hilarious, and I don't know, the movie has a really nice spirit of fun to me, which hit me in just the right spot. So yeah,
I will be seeing Spider-Man at least 1 or 2 more times in the theater.
Wow. Well, while COVID is raging at the moment, I'm definitely not going anywhere indoors with a group of people. As simple as
I got my booster Thursday. So,
and speaking of that, and I don't want to drag the conversation too far down that way because I'm leaving, but I mean, I see so many commercials for movies at the moment, and it's like only in theaters. It's like, come and risk your life to see this movie. I mean, it's just like, really?
Spider-Man is worth risking your life.
The new Matrix movie is going to be on HBO if you have the right subscription.
I refuse to pay for that stuff. Anyway, much love, y'all. Peace.
I desperately want to see Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Pete and I both are all, psyched about it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I was just like, there was a lot of things I was hoping to see, and I saw all of them.
I know. I was always a Spider-Man fan. Tom Holland is actually he's Spider-Man. He's the best one yet.
Tom Holland is an awesome Spider-Man, and I'll tell you, this movie, it's so good. Look, you've seen the trailers. You know that there's bad guys from the
Right.
earlier movies. This movie actually makes the earlier movies better. That's how good it is.
You're just teasing Raven even more.
Vegas, I don't know. I'm going to see it anyway. So.
Are you planning on seeing Spider-Man or?
Well, when we have the money, I want to go. So I would prefer because I want to see the Eternals. And I don't know how much longer I have to wait for that. On cable. But, yeah. Hey kids, you feeling better?
Oh, I'm fine. I've just had to pee a lot, and then I got into a discussion with my mother for a moment. She's going to bed, so I was just talking with her for a moment. So wasn't expecting that, but I was just, yeah, I'm feeling fine. There's nothing bad about me having to use a lavatory a lot. It's just the fact that
broke the seal.
Huh?
You broke the seal. When you're drinking, you're not supposed to pee, because as soon as you do, you're going to keep peeing.
Zoom, I know this is a really long ago callback, but the word lavatory is some crack ass bullshit. That word.
I use it because some people have an issue with bathroom. It's like, well, it's not about the bath, is it? And then if you say restroom, well, you're not trying to rest, are you? So I say lavatory because it's the most generic possible. So,
well, and it's military use, right? Well, see, it's about that. I was in now obviously Canada they call it the washroom, which again you're not going in there to wash, you're going there to piss. But although hopefully you wash after you piss, right? But the thing is that I was in this Chinese restaurant in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side, and I'd been in this place several times. So I was almost a regular. I was there probably once a week. So yeah, at this point I'm a regular. But I never had to use the bathroom before. So I went up to the manager and I was like, "Excuse me, but where's the bathroom?" So now look, if he wanted to correct me, first of all, he knew what I was fucking asking, so there's no reason to correct me. But even if he wanted to correct me, he could have said, "Well, sir, the washroom is over there," right? No, that's not what this motherfucker did. He was like, "Bathroom? We don't have a bathroom. There's no bathtub in there." And he said it loudly to try to humiliate me in front of the other patrons. And I was like, "You rotten motherfucker." So I'm like, you're right. It's not a bathroom. There's no bathtub in there. So I go, "Where do I go so I don't have to piss on your fucking floor?" And then he did the rude American. Yeah, I'm the rude one. You try to humiliate a regular customer in front of the other customers, but I'm the rude one. Yeah, fuck you, buddy.
So Vegas, it's not just like it's straight to TV. It's coming out in theaters, and it's also available streaming on a particular HBO Max subscription. You have to have the one where you're paying $15 a month, I think.
If you have HBO through your cable company, you have HBO Max. You have that.
Right,
as far as what
apparently, I don't know. We looked it up.
No. What you have to do is you have to sign it. You sign in and say you're signing in using your cable company, and then it'll actually that's what I do. I have Verizon, so I actually sign. So they have a link, and I go and I do my Verizon sign in, and then it gives me access.
Okay.
As far as what to call a bathroom, though, you could also say the loo. And that's like there's no other. I don't think there's any other term that could be confused with. So, but lavatory is the safest.
Or the latrine.
Yes.
That's what we called it in the Army.
The WC, water closet. That's what, still referred to that in Britain sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Vegas had said that in the military they called it the head, but that's not all branches of the military.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in the Navy, but
yeah, in the Army it was latrine. So.
Or again, the other thing in Britain is that if you want the men's room, you say I'd like the. You say the men's room, or you say the gents. That's the nice way to say the gents. They know what you mean, and they'll send you there. The loo is what I call it. Excuse me, but where's the piss room?
Then they'll say what do you mean by piss? Because when someone says getting pissed, it's doesn't that mean getting drunk in the UK?
Well, see, the funny thing is they actually understand all three uses. They understand, I am pissed, like I'm angry. They understand taking a piss, and they understand like to get pissed. To get pissed is to get drunk.
Yeah. What happened to Paul while I was gone anyway?
Oh, he had the jet, so
Oh.
But yeah, we started talking about Spider-Man and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, if you like any of the MCU movies, Spider-Man's worth seeing. I think it's one of the best ones. Yeah, I thought I said taking a piss. Taking the piss. Yeah, taking the piss is to like shine somebody on, or to make a joke on them, or prank them, or whatever, or just to fuck with them. It has multiple levels. Or
man, I'm just curious. Like, do you ever have? I get issues sometimes with remnants left of my religious upbringing, where every time I'm wanting to have, every time I'm actually having a good time and I'm happy about something will come up in my head and be like, oh, you shouldn't be feeling this way. God wouldn't want you to feel this way, or there must be some ulterior motive to why you feel happy, and there must be something evil about it or something. And it's just like, just how do you fucking get over it? Because it's just like so often I can only experience happiness for a matter of minutes, and then it gets destroyed by these leftovers of religion. And I'm wondering, have you ever struggled with that? And what do you do to get over it?
I think I might have back like near the transition time, but the thing is, like, a part of it was I stopped being religious before I stopped being a believer. If you understand what I mean, like I believed there was a God, but I basically figured that religion was all bullshit. So over time, I lost all that religious trappings long before I actually acknowledged that I didn't believe that there was any gods. Um, so, so I would say that yes, there was a time when that was a thing, but it's so long ago. So Nick, it was funny. I literally just mentioned you like a few minutes ago. Is this the case, like Beetlejuice or something? I was mentioning the interview you did with Seth and how irritated I was with Seth. So it's funny. I just mentioned you. You showed up. So now, can you give an example of that, kids, of what you mean, like what you've had to deal with?
I don't know, just any time I feel happy and I'm like, wow, I feel really good right now. I feel happy. Oh, there must be some bad reason why I feel happy. There must be some ulterior motive for why I feel happy. There must be some bad reason why I feel happy, because I can't feel that way. God doesn't want me to feel that way. So I don't know. I sometimes I still deal with it to this day, and I don't know how to get rid of it. So sometimes, like, someone could see that I'm happy for a few moments, and then suddenly, bam, I'm self-sabotaging myself.
Well, I mean, I have that, but it's not in any relation to religion, though. I just suffer from depression and a lot of my own issues that I tend to which is why I still weigh what I weigh, because every time I start to make some headway, something, I get depressed or whatever, and then I sabotage myself.
Okay.
But it's not in any way, at least for me, at least not anymore, related to religion. But I remember when I was still, like, I was out of the church, but I kind of still considered myself nominally Catholic. I used to joke with people about how, like, well, basically, if in Catholicism, if something's bad, if it'll bring you any joy. It's like, oh, well, that's bad. I'm sure that's a sin. That's not going to be good for me. And I think the point I was trying to get across. I mean, I don't think Seth saw the chat, but it was like he had a very cavalier attitude about the rights issues, and it's like, look, you can't tell people whose rights are in jeopardy that they should play nice when the other side's not playing nice. And I don't.
Yeah.
And again, I've tried for over the last 5 years in particular, basically made me realize that there are some people who are unreachable. And I disagree with him in the idea that, well, the only choice is talk to them or destroy them. I used to think that. There is ignore them. There is avoid them is another tactic, and then have other people, like, if Seth wants to be a voice for the rest of us, to those people, more power to him. But he shouldn't expect people that are being directly harmed to basically try to make nice with people that are not making nice in the opposite direction. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we don't live in that world where there's some higher justice. It would be nice if there was, but like my wife always says, she wishes that she could believe in the hell that she would love for some of these people to go to, but she doesn't, because that's probably not there. But
Man, something that goes through my head is Proctor Hawk said, feeling happy is bad. And I'm just like, well, according to some of the religious upbringing that I had, yeah. Also, some of the overbearing ways that I was raised, I would think to myself with my mother, oh, would my mother think that my enjoying myself, and not necessarily my mother, my grandmother even more so, but always this element, oh, if you're enjoying yourself, you must be doing something bad. So I mean, all that stuff on top of everything else, it just stacks up as to something that I end up feeling every time I have a genuine feeling of happiness. There's this thing that comes crashing down and says, "Oh, you must be feeling this for a bad reason, so you can't feel happy." I don't know.
Yeah,
It's messed.
Like I said, Proctor Hawk, particularly, with certain forms of Christianity, Catholicism being one of them, there is this idea that basically all the things that we as people generally really like, that they're sinful. Like the body is sinful, so sex is sinful, eating, so if you overeat, that's sinful, even if it's like, granted, eating or overeating too much is bad for you, but the idea that, if you ever do it, that's, that's a sin, and all these kind of things, anything you do like that, things that generally bring us joy, are in some way sinful, and the body is sinful and dirty and all this kind of stuff. So this is deeply steeped in certain religions. So, well, if you think about it, I mean, you mentioned, now you mentioned being around, Mennonites. The Mennonites are a bit more liberal than the Amish, but the Amish, I mean, there's a lot of things that the Amish are against doing. And they have pleasure in their own way, but it's very narrow. They have a very narrow set of what's allowable. So, I can see it. That's there.
Man, this is so inappropriate, but every time I see Mennonites, I picture the jingle by Mennonites. Okay, never mind.
Well, you just made me think, actually, while you said that, they should have a new series, Mennonites in Black. So you have Mennonites investigating alien activity and so forth. But see, the thing is funny. Mennonites are interesting because they are not as conservative as Amish, and I actually thought that they were a liberal offshoot of the Amish, but it's the other way around. Mennonites were first, and the Amish were like, "You motherfuckers are way too permissive." So Mennonites, it's weird. It's unusual. They dress in the traditional garb, but they'll drive cars. So the first time I ever encountered Mennonites was when I lived in Allentown, PA, and I was getting out of my car at the grocery store, and there was an Aldi's, and this van pulls up, and this woman gets out with her 4 daughters, and they're wearing, they're driving a minivan, but they're wearing, like the same type of clothes you'd see the Amish wear. Although they'll also use color, whereas the Amish are pretty much, dark, drab. Mennonites had some bright colors. But yeah, that really surprised me. And then like the woman and her daughter, they all smiled at me, and I said hi. But yeah, I was shocked because I was like, well, I thought the Amish didn't drive cars. Like, well, they're not Amish. The other thing too that's funny, that the Amish have made a concession for business, so you'll see them with cell phones if they're in business. The whole idea with the Amish is that you're not supposed to do anything that takes away from the family. So that's the idea that, well, cars, if you have a car, it's too easy to like leave the community and be elsewhere and not be home with your family or around your community. Now the thing is with the clothes, it's about being modest. It's the same basic idea as what led to the burqa and all that shit. The idea of modesty.
Because if you were to see one of those Amish women without being modest, Joe would have to be all rapey, not able to control himself.
Well, that's what gets me about when the Muslims that because obviously not all Muslims believe that kind of thing, but the ones that do, they're literally saying that men are animals who can't control themselves.
No free will. No free will.
Well, see, the thing is, Nick, would you though? Would you know better? I mean, if you grew up in a situation where that's what you were taught, that's the best way to be, I mean, you might think differently, but chances are you probably wouldn't. I mean, there are people who do leave the community. One thing that's kind of weird though is every once in a while you hear about I remember a couple of years ago there was like an Amish drug ring, and that blew my mind.
Well, I wonder if all their products were all natural.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because the Lord only likes the good stuff.
Yeah, if the Lord didn't give it to us personally.
Amish gay bar.
That just sounds like a kink.
I'm not kidding. I saw this for sale in a mall. It was a bar of soap that was rainbow colored.
Uh-huh.
And it literally said gay bar on it. You could buy the gay bar. It was just different colored soaps pressed together. But yeah.
Don't drop that bar of soap. Okay.
Or, if you're the type to buy it, maybe do. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, about the Mennonites. Well, it makes sense if you generally stay with your family and you don't leave the community. So whatever wealth your parents have or your grandparents have is going to be passed on to you, and you're going to pass your wealth on to your children and grandchildren. So yeah, it stands to reason that they would be asset wealthy, not necessarily cash, but stuff. And if you live an austere life where you don't need a lot, I mean, you'd probably, whatever money or goods you do have and you take care of them, they're probably going to last a long time, and you're going to just build up some shit.
Yeah. I know that back east it might be more ubiquitous, but here in Colorado, Amish-made furniture would fetch a high price.
Yeah, it makes me want to go buy up a whole bunch of stuff in Pennsylvania and ship it out to Colorado and make a bundle.
Strangely enough, what also fetches a high price is crudely made furniture from Mexico with big knockers on them and just like giant cabinets that are like so crudely made compared to Amish furniture. And if they were made with wood that looks like it could be rotting.
That's weird.
Like old grade wood, and then they'll just shellac it to be, permanently in that grade old rotten state, and then fetches a lot of money.
I guess it's like selling jeans that look like they're all dirty and nasty and have been through something for 10 years. So.
Well, I remember that in the 90s where the pre-ripped jeans became a thing. And they look so stupid because, you walk around, you see people, and it's like you could tell the difference because something that frays on its own versus something that was machine frayed. It's like, well, the fibers are clean on your pre-frayed jeans, and as opposed to the other ones, which are going to always be a little dingy.
So, yeah, but there's also, I mean, when they come with pre-stained jeans, pre-stained.
Yeah, believe me, I'll get my own stains in there one way or another. I don't need help. Actually, I wanted to deal with this question from Green Machine. That is always an issue, and it is. I would bet that they probably make a point of trying to marry as far outside of the family as possible. But this is something, I've mentioned this before. Something I learned, like. I've said before that my father's family comes from Alabama, Georgia, or all around the Alabama-Georgia border mostly, and it was a big problem because when things were segregated, and even after they were officially not segregated but still really segregated, for you basically had these isolated black communities, and so your pool of potential people to marry are very limited, and so there's certain families that they end up, they keep marrying, different people from different families, marry one another. And I was told that my grandmother picked my grandfather to marry because he wasn't a close cousin. That was basically the reason. That was their main reason for getting together. Was like he was the most distant person. If they're related, they're really really far apart. But that was one of the main criteria, because they didn't have a lot of options. But as going through things, I when I was dealing with the genealogy, I found people that they're related to me through one family line or another, and then I found new people, and I was like, okay, well, this person's related this way because I see they're related to this other person. Oh, but they're also related to this other, and like where they're probably related twice because of different branches of the family marrying into one another and then coming back. So it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. So, Proctor, you work on CNC and like PLCs and stuff?
Are you trying to get employees out of our fan base?
I'm hiring right now, actually.
That's some savage headhunting right there.
I saved myself thousands of dollars in recruiter fees. Oh, just setups. That's a shame. Damn. Oh, there's probably
Amish porn trafficking.
Oh, I would without a doubt, I would put money on that. And there's probably also an Amish kink too. I bet that I know there's a nun kink. There's got to be an Amish kink.
So,
I'm sure.
I'm brave enough to do this. I'm just going to go to our favorite number one site is Pornhub, right? That's still the number one, right? Let me see. It doesn't say number one on the site, but hold on. I'm going to put in the word Amish. I'll let you all know. Hold on. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Yes, and there's plenty of it. Hold on. 14 videos had the word Amish in them of the entire Pornhub database.
Nice.
And from what I can see, they are wearing the Amish uniform.
Oh, no, there's more, because then there's the premium videos.
Yeah. But you can see there's that special hat that they're wearing.
The bonnet, yeah.
The bonnet, yeah. They look homely. Yep, it's there.
Figured there had to be. I'm sure if I type nuns in there, there'll be a bunch of stuff too.
Yeah, that seems like it would be. There's more people who come in contact with nuns than.
You know why they're called nuns?
What?
Because they get none.
Oh.
Yeah, and then oh god. So no, I won't.
What?
We'll talk about it offline when the show's over.
Okay.
Speaking of which, it's almost midnight, so I think I'm going to end the show. But thanks for so Vegas is a fan of Dave Attell. I can tell. Because I remember Jebediah. I remember that joke.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks everyone who's been watching and commenting, and thanks to the panel for everybody who's here and was here. We had somebody new today, which was cool.
Yeah.
And hopefully, and also brought new audience members. So thanks to everybody for stopping in again. Paul's not going to be running the show next week, but I probably will. Just watch our page for the time and everything. But I think we'll still do something next week. Oh, Raven's back just in time.
Oh, Raven's back. Hey, there you go.
We're
I
just
came back to say goodbye.
okay, cool. Well, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Well, here's something Raven will remember. See ya. Hope you had a good time.
Good time. Yeah, the Magic Garden.
Yes.
Magic Garden. I loved the Magic Garden when I was a kid.
Magic Garden was an awesome show.
Most people have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it was just in the Northeast on public television, but it was an awesome show. And we're out.
All right.
He left. He just left. Hi.
Well,
We're still going. We're still alive. We're still. I can't.
That's not.
One more time.
We're still alive. I was gonna flash everybody in the chat. I mean, everybody on the panel, but I can't do that for live.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to end the broadcast correctly.
Okay.